Chapter 1713. When Lin Yuan saw this snake species flying fey with huge golden wings, his eyes lit up. He didn't need to use Morbius true data to investigate. He knew that this snake fey must have the feathered serpent bloodline, one of the 7 supreme bloodlines of snakes. Compared to the soaring serpent bloodline that his master, the Moon Empress, and the pure and white snakes that pulled the carriage, this feathered serpent bloodline was still very weak. Even so, this snake fey's feathered serpent bloodline had almost reached the limit of a snake-type fantasy breed fey. This giant snake was about 500 meters long, and its entire body was a brilliant golden blue. The golden and blue snake scales seemed to contain 2 kinds of power. On the dark golden snake eyes, there was a wing-like eyelid excrescence. The excrescence was hard and had a very strong sense of horniness. It gave this snake fey a majestic and sacred aura out of nowhere. This feathered serpent's tail was raised high, and it had the obvious characteristics of a rattlesnake. Its specialized tail tip was nearly 5 meters long. Every time the tail tip shook, a small snake that turned into a musical note would overflow from the tail tip and drill into the snake fey's head. It was as if it was drilling into the clouds. The giant snake flapped its wings and soared into the sky. Its body shuttled through the clouds, which became thicker and thicker. Heavy rain poured down in an instant. It drenched the 2 independent 100 sequence members and Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan's hair and clothes were wet in the rain. The rain that fell on the silver mask slid down the streamlined end of the mask. It made Black look like a noble strolling in the rain. Under the rain, it didn't look the slightest bit disheveled. However, the 2 independent 100 sequence members seemed to have suffered an invisible attack. They were all squatting on the ground, hugging their heads and trembling violently. It was as if they were suffering some kind of pain. It was the same for the fey summoned by the 2 independent 100 sequence members. That platinum/fantasy breed flood dragon fey was in pain. At this moment he was in so much pain that he felt like a maggot and he was struggling on the ground. The white jade ground had been destroyed. The rain had wet the ground, making it abnormally muddy. This silver-white flood dragon fey seemed to have become an earth-drilling loach. Its body was covered in mud and looked very disheveled. It was as if he had lost half his life after being drenched by the rain. Lin Yuan also sensed that this rain could launch a mental attack. Firstly, Genius strength had already been raised to Diamond X/Fantasy V. Although Genius wasn't a snake species fey, its bloodline had evolved along the way. To some extent, the intelligence of the heavenly knowing destiny beast had evolved. It was more noble than any fey and bloodline that Lin Yuan knew of. It was even taller than the managing phoenix New Sun Sparrow, which had devoured Chime's phoenix bloodline and evolved into a sun independently. Genius represented the 100 questions beast race. After obtaining pure spirit chi, they would be qualified to walk on the path of a creation master. The path of a creation master was the standard to assist in the evolution of myriad spirits. A fey's innate talent possessed such an ability. Compared to the heavenly spirits, such a spiritual being was more worthy of being called the favored child of heaven and earth. Genius, which had advanced to Diamond X/Fantasy V, had no boundaries in its spirit sea. It could definitely target a peak Myth 2 spiritual type fey. Therefore, under this drizzle that was harmful to one's mind, through Genius spiritual expansion, Lin Yuan was able to avoid the damage. Secondly, Lin Yuan had previously used the silver stamen gold luster cache's nectar to wash away the impurities in his body. After the silver stamen gold luster cache's strength had broken through, he had used the silver stamen gold luster cache's nectar to wash away the impurities in his soul. After consuming the geocentric immortal milk, Lin Yuan's genetic model had undergone an unknown evolution. To a certain extent, Lin Yuan could no longer be treated as a normal spirit chi professional. The process of washing away the impurities 3 times was more painful each time. Especially when he used the geocentric immortal milk for the 3rd time, Lin Yuan experienced that every cell was torn apart and reconstructed. The pain repeated tens of thousands of times. This pain affected the soul, mind, and body. Therefore, without Genius spiritual expansion, Lin Yuan could still resist under such a torrential rain. Even with Lin Yuan's mind, there would still be a huge burden. However, he would never be like the 2 independent 100 sequence members, who held their heads and collapsed on the ground. There was no room for resistance at all. That giant snake with golden wings and golden blue scales. It continued to wander among the dark clouds. At that moment, the audience was appalled to discover something. The dark clouds in the sky had unknowingly gathered into an ink-blue sky river. Golden spirit snakes swam in the ink-blue sky river. As these spirit snakes swam, there was a strange sound. This sound seemed to contain some kind of power. However, it was not released. Seeing Lin Yuan in the rain, there was no change. Han Qi, who was in a frenzy, pursed his lips tightly. Han Qi did not expect such a situation to occur. His main Fei had summoned a curtain of rain. To other spirit Qi professionals, it had always been a great killing weapon. Han Qi thought in his heart. Could it be that Black has a spiritual type defense type Fei? Han Qi, who was speculating about Black, did not know that his other main Fei was brewing the Sky River in the sky. His opponent, Black, had already checked his Fei's true data clearly. Fei name: Fan Yu Guanyin Snake, Fei species, Feathered Serpent / Sound Serpent, Fei grade, Diamond 10 out of 10, Fei type, Sound / Water, Fei quality, Fantasy V abilities: Frowny face, bell tail. When the tail is swung, the sound can turn into a spirit snake and attack the designated target indiscriminately. After hitting the target, a snake-shaped mark will be formed on the target's body. Every 10 snake-shaped marks will trigger a sonic boom effect. Feather shadow protection. When the wings extend out a light shadow, it can protect itself or other targets. When the light shadow is damaged, the feathers can be consumed to increase the light shadow's strength. Sacrificial prayer snake voice. When attacking a target that is suffering a spiritual attack, each attack will sacrifice a certain amount of the target's vitality, spiritual power, spiritual energy, and soul power. The sacrificed power will be injected into the designated target's body. Guanyin weeping. The Killing Heart Guanyin statue weeps and forms a range of rain curtain. The snake-shaped musical notes can freely appear in the rain curtain or be condensed by the rain curtain. At the same time, the weeping Guanyin statue will spew out snake-shaped musical notes with double the attack power. Feathered Serpent connection. By burning one's own bloodline and sacrificing one's body, one will protect the target under the premise of burning the false core. No matter what the target sacrifices, the sacrificial effect will be endured by the body. Sanskrit Heavenly Temple. Temporarily give up the Feathered Serpent bloodline and activate the Sound Serpent bloodline to the extreme. Through the snake-shaped musical notes, the Killing Heart Guanyin will sit in the Heavenly Temple. From then on, the Killing Heart Guanyin's hand will turn into a staff made of snake-shaped musical notes and attack the target. Exclusive skill: Frowny Face Killing Heart Guanyin. Through the snake-shaped musical notes, a Guanyin statue will be formed behind the user. The snake-shaped musical notes emitted from the Guanyin pure bottle will be twice as strong as the original snake-shaped musical notes. Torrential Milky Way. Condense dark clouds in the sky, and the dark clouds will accumulate rain to form a Milky Way hanging in the sky. The Milky Way will gather water elements and be able to replenish the user's water element energy at any time and form a rain curtain with extreme spiritual attack power. The raindrops can put the opponent's spirit in extreme pain. 7017K. Chapter 1714. Through the feedback from true data, Lin Yuan knew. The anomaly in the sky was formed by the Fan Yu Guanyin snake executing its second exclusive skill, Torrential Milky Way. As for the little golden snakes swaying in the Milky Way, they were the Fan Yu Guanyin snakes that were executing their spirit tail technique. If one were to say that the Wuxia earth snake summoned by Han Qi could perfectly restrain his source sand, the Fan Yu Guanyin snake, which was also a sound type Fei like Chimey, happened to be restrained by Chimey. The Milky Way blocked out the sun. The sky darkened in front of Chimey. It was no different from covering the bonfire with a black cloth. Even though the heavenly river was thick and heavy, it was still formed by dark clouds. 100 layers of black cloth stacked on top of the bonfire could still be easily burned through by the bonfire. Han Qi stood on the body of the world bright serpent under the heavenly river. He was like a king surrounded by thousands of snakes. Han Qi said angrily, "Black, you killed one of my main Feis and destroyed my talent. I want you dead." Bright snake of the world. Snake world emerges. Fan Yu Guanyin snake, use your Guanyin weeping tears. Kill this guy in front of me. As soon as Han Qi finished speaking, the Wuxia earth snake's tail suddenly stabbed into the ground. A large number of dark red snake patterns appeared on the snake's body. These snake patterns swam in the air. In the end, a huge snake gate was formed behind the Wuxia earth snake. Snake patterns swam on the snake gate, bringing with it a damp, fishy, and sinister aura. Suddenly the huge stone door cracked open. A large number of 3 to 4 meters long dark brown snakes swarmed out from the snake door. Han Qi wielded the 5-star artifact, the demon lizard tooth blade, and chopped down 5 to 6 wild snakes. The spiritual power that he had consumed was instantly replenished to a full state. In the sky, Fan Yu stabbed the tail of the Guanyin snake into the heavenly river. The snake tail shook rapidly, stirring up a huge whirlpool in the heavenly river. With the vortex as the center, a large number of spirit snakes formed by golden musical notes were released toward the heavenly river. Furthermore, the spirit snakes formed by the golden musical notes were much thicker than before. The rain was even heavier than before. Golden spirit snake notes flickered in the rain from time to time. It was as if the spiritual snake musical notes in the heavenly river could appear anywhere in the rain. Right at this moment, Han Chi heard the voice that he abnormally loathed ring out. I remember your Freedom Federation saying that this is just a friendly match. I killed one of your main Fays because it's inevitable to make mistakes in battle. I don't think you don't understand such a simple logic. Lin Yuan's words made Han Chi's teeth suddenly clench together. It made a creaking sound. This was the pretext that the Freedom Federation had prepared for this friendly battle long ago. Now, before he even had the chance to use it, someone else had used it on him. In Han Chi's opinion, this was truly a form of mockery. Seeing that Black didn't summon any other Fays, Black nodded. Meanwhile, the curtain of rain formed by Guanin's weeping tears had already reached Black. Han Chi sneered and shouted. I understand. But I hope you can understand. Han Chi's voice had just faded when he heard that cold voice full of mockery. You can't be thinking that with the ability that you've displayed now, you can determine victory, right? Chimey, the sky has been overcast for too long. It's time to see the sun. Lin Yuan's voice had just faded when the golden birds circling around Lin Yuan's body instantly took him as the origin. Out of nowhere they increased by dozens of times. If it was previously a grand scene of 100 birds bowing to the ancestor, then it had now become 10,000 birds bowing to the ancestor. Among the tens of thousands of golden birds, there was a golden phoenix with a body length of 10 meters in every 1,000 golden birds. These 10 phoenixes constantly led the flock to circle around. It was as if they were looking forward to the arrival of their king. The pipa strings that had originally only sounded out 2 or 3 times immediately fluctuated. The sweet-sounding pipa sound seemed to make the heavy rain in the sky pause. In the rain, the musical notes turned into little golden snakes. All of them were picked up by the flying birds. Then they were pecked into pieces by a few flying birds at the same time. At this moment in the sky above Lin Yuan's head, a young girl's clear shout came. Immediately after, 10,000 birds bowed. The golden birds condensed into a 3-string pipa that seemed to contain a new sun. This pipa's neck looked like a phoenix's neck. At this moment, the phoenix's neck was being gently pinched by a pair of hands. A young girl's shadow appeared in midair. This young girl's beauty was simply indescribable. The heavens seemed to favor this young girl's facial features. If an ordinary person was only sculpted 1,000 times, this young girl's facial features were definitely sculpted 10,000 times. This young girl was elegant and gentle, with vitality and charm. Her appearance was not inferior to even the Moon Empress and Lian Shen. However, at this moment, the members of the 100 Sequence and the Star Web audience were not surprised by this young girl's beauty. Instead, this young girl was simply carved from the same mold as the sparrow-voiced lowly goddess who had live-streamed on the Star Web previously. Back then, the sparrow-voiced lowly goddess looked far less like a Valkyrie than the current young girl. At that time, the sparrow-voiced lowly goddess looked like a pretty daughter from a humble family. Previously, the sparrow-voiced lowly goddess had appeared in the live-streaming room with a blue-gold bird. That bird was Black's Fae at that time. This made everyone speculate that the sparrow-voiced lowly goddess should have a close relationship with Black. Otherwise, it was impossible for Black's Fae to be placed with the sparrow-voiced lowly goddess. But now, everything seemed to be self-evident. The sparrow-voiced lowly goddess should have been transformed from Black's bird Fae on the execution platform. Bai Hao looked at the woman's shadow in midair, who was holding a pipa with a phoenix neck and was surrounded by hundreds of birds. He was instantly stunned. For a moment, he could not help but have a myriad of thoughts. No one knew what Bai Hao was thinking at this moment. However, Wang Fan, who was standing beside Bai Hao, noticed that Bai Hao's teeth were tightly biting his lower lip. This was something that Bai Hao would only do when he was extremely nervous and worried. Bai Hao should be very worried about the safety of Black's bird Fae. The current Chimey did not give the audience time to be surprised by its appearance and identity. Everyone saw the woman's shadow raise her hand and point at the sky. In an instant, the sun that was covered by the Milky Way bloomed with radiance. This radiance pierced through the Milky Way mercilessly. In less than a minute, it completely evaporated the Milky Way and the rain curtain. It was just like the Milky Way and the rain curtain, as well as the spirit snake shuttling through the rain curtain. It was as if they had never appeared. Before Han Chi could react, the young girl's pleasant voice rang out again. Immediately after, under everyone's astonished gaze, everyone saw that the sun in the phoenix neck pipa had actually flown out of the pipa itself. It gradually rose in this world. 7017K. Chapter 1715. The sun that flew out of the pipa constantly radiated golden light. The sun slowly hovered in midair and resonated with the sun in the sky. It was as though this sun was created by Chimy's ability and could borrow the power of the sun in the sky. Han Chi wouldn't believe such a situation even if he was beaten to death. If there was really a fae that could create a sun by itself, wouldn't this fae be even more powerful than a favored spirit? The sun that Chimy had just risen looked too small. The Moon Empress, Chef Supreme, Bamboo Monarch, and the Pity God, although they noticed that this sun was a little special, they didn't pay too much attention. Instead, they mainly focused on Chimy itself. However, Shuai, who was hiding in Lin Yuan's hair, felt his heart tremble for no reason. As a favored spirit that belonged to the sun, Shuai could be said to be the most sensitive to the sun. The Moon Empress might be a Class 6 creation master now. Even her perception of the sun couldn't compare to Shuai. Shuai felt a kind of power that had the same origin as the main world's sun. This discovery made Shuai look at Chimy in horror. It was no longer a question of whether he believed it or not. Right now, it was no longer a question of whether they believed him or not. After the sun rose into the sky, it immediately used Phoenix Seed voice transmission. Chimy had fused the soul seed that it had refined from the Phoenix Phase soul into the sound birds. Chimy had fused the soul seed that it had refined from the Phoenix species Phase soul into the sound bird's body. Immediately after, these phoenixes flapped their wings and welcomed the floating earth snake. Through the exclusive skill Snake World Floating, a total of 18 golden phoenixes were singing in front of Chimy. Then these phoenixes flapped their wings and welcomed the floating earth snake. Each of the golden phoenixes transformed from musical notes was surrounded by hundreds and thousands of sound birds. These flying birds were formed by Chimy's ordinary ability Phoenix Cry. After each golden flying bird hit the target, it had an extremely powerful penetrating effect. At the same time, the target wasn't killed by the bird-shaped Phoenix Cry. It would intimidate and interfere with the target. When the flying birds were attacked or blocked, they would split into even more flying birds. The wild snakes that crawled out of the Snake World door were tested by the golden flying birds. His strength was between the gold, platinum, and diamond levels. Seeing a large number of berserk snakes crawling out of the gate of the Snake World being killed, Han Chi knew that he had to bring out some real ability. The Fan Yu Guanyin snake was obviously restrained by the spiritual creature that Black had summoned. Therefore, the best way to deal with this fae was to control the floating earthly bright snake to attack. Han Chi immediately activated the second effect of Snake Realm Floating World. All of a sudden, a dark brown light burst forth from the earthly snake's body. Then the Yukio earth snake's body coiled up, petrified into a stone tablet. The power of the land snake of the floating world was distributed to each of the wild snakes. These wild snakes instantly changed from gold to diamond and platinum. They became gold fantasy breed, platinum fantasy breed, and diamond fantasy breed. This meant that his overall strength had risen to a whole new level. As a result, the golden birds were no longer able to effectively attack the snakes. Only the musical note phoenixes that were produced by Chimy's Phoenix Seed induction skill were left behind. Only then would he be able to continue killing the berserk snake. Originally, the berserk snakes that came out of the Snake World's door used physical attacks. At that moment, a large group of dark brown giant snakes with blood patterns squeezed out of the Snake World's door with difficulty. As soon as these giant snakes appeared, they spewed out a large amount of poisonous fog and set off a sandstorm in the arena. At that moment, the sandstorm seemed to only be able to blind one's vision. However, the sand and dust were highly toxic and they could be blown onto flesh and blood. The sand was as sharp as a blade and it could easily grind away flesh. Chimy rarely had the chance to help Lin Yuan fight. After its bloodline metamorphosis, it had never fought before. Now that its bloodline had evolved, it was the first time it had helped Lin Yuan fight, and it was already being obstructed. Chimy automatically cast its skill, Fallen New Sunday. The sun that Chimy had just risen suddenly descended and smashed on the general execution platform. It formed a huge area that was 200 square meters in size. The ground in this area seemed to have formed the surface of the sun. The sand that the giant snake stirred up was unable to blow into the sun's area. It had already melted into magma. The new fallen sun allowed Chimy to be immune to most physical and elemental damage. Chimy used its exclusive skill, Twin Sun Fetters, to communicate with the sun in the sky. It started to sing and communicate with the sun in the sky. It borrowed a trace of energy from the main world's sun to replenish its consumption of the sun's area. After doing all of this, Chimy cast the new sun body skill. The phantom formed by musical notes landed on the ground and stepped into the sun's area. The light-type musical notes that formed Chimi's body instantly transformed into fire-type musical notes. Chimi's aura suddenly changed. Lin Yuan knew that Chimi had already transformed from the managing phoenix's new sun sparrow into the untamed Sanskrit sparrow. The golden birds that were originally flying in the sky instantly turned crimson. These crimson birds were like fire seeds. When they stuck onto the bodies of these wild snakes, they would immediately ignite. However, these fires wouldn't be extinguished. Soon enough, a monstrous fire burned within the snake horde. Even the few giant snakes that had squeezed out of the snake world's door with great difficulty were burned to ashes. Under the fire seeds they were burned to ashes. Chimi changed its attack. Han Chi didn't stop either. Han Chi controlled the floating earth snake and used its quicksand mad guide. By devouring a large amount of sand, its aura rose. It formed a thick layer of sand armor on its body. The floating earth snake, which was carrying out such a defense, didn't care that the flames had spread to its body. This was because this hollow layer of sand armor could effectively help the floating earth snake isolate the heat of the flames. The floating earth snake flicked its tail. In an instant, 3 snake eggs were expelled from the floating earth snake's body. These 3 snake gallbladders absorbed the earth-type energy under its feet. Soon enough, 3 snake men with 8 arms drilled out of the snake eggs. Each of these snake men held a weapon made of black crystals. These black crystals were very similar to the crystals that appeared when the floating earth snake used its drill explosion. The floating earth snake had hatched these 3 snake men according to its Queen's Guard skill. Every one of them had the aura of a Diamond X/Fantasy V. Just this skill alone allowed the floating earth snake to fight against 4 enemies. Although it wasn't as flexible as the Mother of Bloodbath's monster trainer's exclusive skill, External Blood Bone. However, the bright snake of the floating world was able to control the 3 snake guards through simple commands. The snake guards rushed toward Chimi. 7017K. Chapter 1716. At that moment, the floating earth snake was constantly expanding the snake world's door. From time to time, more and more wild snakes drilled out. Most of the wild snakes that drilled out had area of effect elemental attacks. At that moment, Black raised its fist and faced the 3 Empress personal guards. It actually relied on a kind of combat technique and movement technique that Han Chi could not understand. It used its physical body to clash head-on with the 3 Empress personal guards. The wild snake's elemental attacks landed on Black's body. For some reason, Black was immune to the nether bamboo viper's venom. It was actually immune to the elemental attacks that could kill ordinary B-rank spirit chi professionals countless times. This made Han Chi very puzzled. At the same time, Han Chi understood. On the Freedom Federation's side, apart from Kai Hua Yanling and Yu Changjin, they had also set up a hidden trump card. It was definitely the same for the Radiance Federation. Black was the hidden trump card that the Radiance Federation had kept. Right now, Black's Fae that could control the Red Bird was present. His Sanskrit Guanyin snake was restrained. The Sanskrit Guanyin snake used its water attribute ability to face Black's Fae. For some reason, it had lost its effectiveness. Han Chi did not want to activate his sacred source lifeform. He summoned the demon that he had spent so much effort to get from Du Miaomian. If he used all his trump cards in the first match of the general slaying battle, wouldn't he have no chance to kill the Radiance 100 sequence members? Previously, he had promised Chen Yu that he would definitely kill all 3 Radiance 100 sequence members. At that thought, Han Chi issued a command to the Sanskrit Guanyin snake in the sky. Use the ability, Sanskrit Temple, and then use the exclusive skill, Killing Heart Guanyin. When the Sanskrit Guanyin snake heard the command, it flapped its wings and let out a violent hiss. The snake tail swayed and left after images. A large number of golden snake patterns flew into the sky and outlined the outline of a temple. At that moment, a benevolent-looking Guanyin appeared in the temple. As the golden snake patterns increased, the Guanyin became more and more solid. The Guanyin suddenly opened its eyes, which contained endless killing intent. The 2 pure bottles in his hands had turned into a Buddhist staff at this time. The huge Guanyin swooped down from the sky. He raised his staff and smashed it at Chimi. This strike could be said to be the Sanskrit Guanyin snake's all-out strike. It had already surpassed the limit of Diamond X/Fantasy V. At this time, Black seemed to be in a stalemate with the 3 snake guards. He was completely powerless to resist this Guanyin that descended from the sky. As for the crimson female phantom, she was constantly fighting against the berserk snake. It was obvious that he had used up more than half of his spiritual power. Lin Yuan was naturally aware of this situation. Each of Chimy's attacks relied on its own consumption of spirit chi. As for Han Chi's floating world earth snake, its strength was almost the same as Chimy. However, it could devour the yellow sand to recover the energy and spiritual energy it had consumed. He used his exclusive skill Snake World Floating, and opened the door to the snake world. These wild snakes had crawled out of the snake world. No matter how much damage it suffered, it wouldn't affect the floating world earthly snake at all. If Chimy went up, it would strike out its strongest attack. If Han Chi wanted to block it, he could only reveal more trump cards. However, in a stalemate, Chimy was indeed not Han Chi's match. Lin Yuan didn't want to waste any more time. He didn't want to open the Spirit Chi imprint and Life imprint when fighting Han Chi. Therefore he had to end the battle quickly. Lin Yuan's plan wasn't so small that he had to fight a second match. He had to kill another independent 100 sequence member. Before the start of each general slaying battle, both sides could set the requirements again. If Han Chi requested, the Spirit Chi professionals in the battle were not allowed to leave the venue in any way. Lin Yuan wasn't confident that the floating world Earth Snake would use its bright snake divine connection. It had to protect the independent 100 sequence members on his side. Therefore Lin Yuan planned to end the general slaying battle in this battle. Lin Yuan ordered Genius in his heart. Genius, use Cat's Embrace. After Lin Yuan gave the order, the Star Web viewers suddenly realized something. Behind black, 8 dazzling, illusory tails suddenly appeared. Each of the 8 tails was nearly 100 meters long. These 8 tails intertwined with black and the snake guards in a stalemate. They faced the killing heart Guanyin in the sky that was holding the Buddhist staff. These cat tails were very similar to the spirit cat phantom's tail that appeared behind black during the duel with Lu Shuang. Black didn't summon a Fey and only used its Fey's ability. It looked like it was in a dilemma and had no choice but to parry. Everyone thought that the cat tails would break under the Buddhist staff. These cat tails that didn't seem to have much combat power directly sent the killing heart Guanyin flying. Moreover, these 8 cat tails didn't stop attacking after sending the killing heart Guanyin flying. These 8 cat tails bloomed in the air. It was like a white peony. In the middle of the peony, an attack brewed with spiritual energy was shot out. Genius's attack didn't belong to Genius itself. Genius used its Cat's Embrace ability to cluster a Fey called the Silver Crystal Feline. It used the Silver Crystal Feline's ability, the Spiritual Destruction Silver Bullet. For this attack, Genius used its own spiritual energy. With just one attack, it completely shattered the killing heart Guanyin. At that moment, Lin Yuan also released the spirit essence that was originally suppressed at 80% to 10%. After a few punches, half of the 8 arms of the snake guard which was caught off guard were broken. 2 of the independent 100 sequence candidates were kneeling on the ground, shivering. Even the top prodigies of the Freedom Federation. They weren't mentally prepared for the possibility of losing or dying. Now the strength that Black displayed. Let these 2 independent 100 sequence members know. Regardless of whether Han Chi could kill Black or not, he would definitely use the 2 of them as scapegoats before he died. Han Chi saw that the situation was already out of his control. He gritted his teeth and suddenly his eyes changed. The original white of his eyes turned black. His black eyeballs turned white, and his vertical pupils turned white. In the vertical pupils, there was a depraved and oppressive purple light. The bones in Han Chi's tall and straight body suddenly made a violent sound. Han Chi's skin slowly turned grayish-black. A pair of long black horns appeared on his head. These horns were different from any other Fey's horns. These 2 horns spiraled upward. They were the unique long horns of the devil in the Devil Cathedral of the Freedom Federation. These 2 long horns proved that he was a middle-ranked devil. Lin Yuan knew that Han Chi was now. He had finally used his trump card in a true sense. And the collision that would decide life and death was about to officially begin. 7017K. Chapter 1717. At present, Lin Yuan was also weighing his trump card. Currently he had the following phase. Genius, Chimy, Red Thorn, Source Sand, Ethereal Jellyfish, Jasmine Lily and Little Black. Purple Cloud, Soul Thought Whale. For example, Jean Say, Silver Splendor, or the Apostles Wendy and Lizard Teng. These Fays that were in dimensional spaces or other continents definitely couldn't be casually revealed. Lin Yuan did not mind revealing his trump card in this battle against the Freedom Federation's envoy. However, it did not mean that he had to bring those trump cards that were not helpful in battle to the table. For example, Red Thorn used its Tongue of Relinquish to control a few Overlord-class weapons. Or perhaps Bai Yen, who believed that he was the ruler and had submitted to him. These were the powers that Lin Yuan had mastered. But to others this kind of power seemed too much like an external force. The two majesties of the Freedom Federation would definitely not approve of his display of power. According to Xue Shua, 2 pages of the pagoda canon had come to Hui Yao. The strange plant seeds and plants that made Red Thorn's tongue of relinquish came from the pagoda canon. It was definitely not something simple. He did not want the tower cannon to target him. Among the fays that he could use now, Genius, Chimey, Red Thorn, and the Source Sand were the only ones he could use. They had more or less been used. However, Red Thorn and Genius had only revealed a little of their strength. Lin Yuan had heard his master, the Moon Empress, mention the devils of the Freedom Federation. He had a certain level of understanding. He knew that the devil wasn't like the desolate bloodline phase that could be summoned. Instead, he would fuse with the contractor and demonize the contractor. Obtain the power of the devil. It was very similar to those fays that could fuse with their hosts. When he had first learned about demons, he had asked his master, the Moon Empress, what was the difference between a demon and a fae that could possess a contractor? Back then, the Moon Empress' answer was to fuse the fae with the contractor, and the contractor would still be the main one. On the other hand, when a devil possessed a contestant, the devil would be the dominant one. As he spoke, Lin Yuan could tell. His master, the Moon Empress, was rather fearful of creatures like devils. It was as though a spirit chi professional strength would undergo a drastic change after being possessed by a devil. Lin Yuan was rather surprised that Han Chi could contract a middle-rank devil. The devils in the Devil Cathedral were the same as the Desolate Bloodline phase. There weren't many of them. The Desolate Bloodline spiritual item could only be given to His Highness Disciple, and the Radiance Envoy. Members of the Radiant Light Knights could only be promoted if they had made great contributions. Only then would they be bestowed with a Desolate Bloodline spiritual object. The Freedom Federation had many people favored by His Majesty. Every single one of Her Majesty's caretakers had a single devil that was simply unrealistic. Only those of the younger generation who were favored by His Holiness and whose status was equivalent to His Holiness Hui Yao's disciples. Only then would he have the chance to be bestowed the devil. The fact that Han Chi could be bestowed with a devil was enough to show Han Chi's status. A devil was more precious than a sacred source life form. For example, during the Dimensional Conference, one could obtain an uncontracted sacred source life form as a reward. However, it was impossible for him to use a desolate bloodline fae as a reward. Hence, Han Chi must also have a sacred source life form. After measuring Han Chi's strength, Lin Yuan knew that Han Chi's strength was very strong. His sacred source life form, the sword-wielding queen. He definitely had to use it. While Han Chi was transforming into a devil, he was thinking about how to kill Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan was thinking about how to expose another fae. And when he did not use the sword-wielding queen's new ability, he would obtain victory in the general slaying battle. It could be said that after the previous few clashes, Lin Yuan, who had roughly figured out Han Chi's path, knew that the floating world Bright Snake had the Bright Snake divine ability. When Han Chi and the floating world Bright Snake both sacrificed themselves, he would be facing an opponent whose strength could reach Myth 2 in a short period of time. He still did not have the slightest fear or worry. He now had a total of 6 sword skills in the sacred sword state. If Lin Yuan was given another day, the 7th sword skill could also be formed. Among them, a few world crystals came from the Miao family. Miao Jinshan had been killed by the Void Shadow Demon in the final Blood Oath Extreme battle. Back then, Lin Yuan had not chosen to make Miao Jinshan into an Emperor-class weapon. First, it was because there was only one red tongue of relinquished tip left. Lin Yuan had to reserve this spot. He would leave it for more important targets. Second, Lin Yuan had his eyes on Miao Jinshan's spiritual type main Fei, the Golden Eerie Dreamweaver's World Crystal. He would then absorb this World Crystal, which had 8 Creation Earth veins and was one step away from forming an immortal body. Lin Yuan could already use this sword skill to hit the limit of a myth-breed Fei. If Lin Yuan was willing to use this attack, he would not be able to kill the floating world Bright Snake, which had reached Myth 2 under the double sacrifice. He would definitely be able to touch the Freedom Envoy Qian Yu. Since it was a sacred source life form, the sacred sword-wielding queen could no longer hide it. Lin Yuan raised his hand, and a holy sword with a gorgeous hilt and a simple blade appeared in his hand. This was the second time His Holiness Hui Yao, Lu Jie, Zhongzhe, and the others saw Lin Yuan use his own sacred source life form. However, this time Lin Yuan's back was not like when he had fought with Zhongzhe. A woman's phantom appeared behind him. This was probably because he was facing Han Chi. Lin Yuan did not need to activate the functions related to that woman's phantom. Zhongzhe, who had fought with Lin Yuan before, keenly noticed. Originally, only the tip of this sacred sword was engraved with fine totems. Now this sacred sword had an additional sword tassel. The sword tassel was very elegant, and when the wind blew, it brushed past Lin Yuan's wrist. This elegant sword tassel was woven with some strange method. This weaving method seemed to be doing its best to protect something hidden. Han Chi had been completely possessed by the devil. Han Chi's spirit chi clothes had been completely pierced by the bone horns that grew out from within his skin. To a certain extent, devils and the abyss-dimensional lifeforms, demons, had some similarities in appearance. However, demons' power tended to focus on the physical body. Devils, on the other hand, had the power to corrupt the soul and the mind. Han Chi's legs had already become 5 or 6 snake tails that rubbed against each other and constantly wrapped around each other. His hands were covered with a layer of grayish-purple scales. His fingertips had become even sharper and longer than the demon lizard Fang Blade's dagger. Han Chi's gray vertical pupils within the sclera of his black eyes were staring at him with exceptional calmness. Lin Yuan used Morbius True Data to investigate Han Chi. Lin Yuan was shocked to find that, since the devil was hidden in Han Chi's body, Morbius True Data did not have the ability to see through it. It was like inspecting a mother beast, even if this mother beast was about to give birth. Morbius couldn't see through the void mother's stomach to see what was inside. Therefore Lin Yuan could not see this devil's attributes. Chapter 17-18. Since that was the case, Lin Yuan, who was holding the sacred sword, did not act immediately. Han Chi had already merged with the middle-rank devil that he had contracted. This devil had an appearance similar to a snake. It would definitely be a good match with Han Chi's snake phase. Han Chi would eventually have to use this ability. Lin Yuan planned to see what kind of ability this middle-rank devil had. Then he would decide which sword skill to use. Sword skills had different targets. If used according to the situation, it could often have unexpected effects. Han Chi's voice was obscure and harsh. However, if one listened carefully, it would sound abnormally pleasant. It was as if the devil was whispering in one's ear in the dead of night. Black, I just used the devil and you used your sacred source life form. I originally planned to kill you in the 3rd round, but I've changed my mind. Have you heard that devils can see through people's hearts? Upon hearing that, the corners of Lin Yuan's mouth curled up behind the mask. Whether a devil can see through people's hearts depends on whether this devil has the ability. But I can indeed see through what you're thinking in your heart. The side effect of the Bright World Earth Snake's diamond ability, Bright Snake Divine Connection, is irreversible. I think you're not willing to use it either. Lin Yuan's words caused Han Chi's expression to change drastically. After fighting for so long, it could be said that Han Chi had a vague impression of the opponent he was facing. His main Fae, the Bright World Earth Snake, could restrain that Sand-type Source-type lifeform. However, he did not expect this Sand-type Source-type lifeform to be able to precipitate steel from it. Steel was a Metal-type power, and the Metal-type was not a variant of the Earth-type. Therefore, the Bright World Earth Snake had no way to control it. This made it so that he had to protect the 2 independent 100 sequence members. He had lost the Dark Bamboo Viper. Now that the Sand-type Source-type lifeform had no effect, Black had summoned it to his feet. It formed a protective belt under his feet. This sand was the main body of those sand elemental source-type lifeforms. The Bright World Earth Snake could control the source sand and use the Earth-type among the elements. However, it could not hinder the source sand from moving. Just now, in the battle with the snake guards that had hatched from the Wuxia land snake, the source sand had protected Black a lot. He blocked the joint slash of the snake guard's 8 arms and the impact from the drill explosion of the weapon in his hand. Unless the floating world Bright Serpent kept using the skill Great Earth Remold. Otherwise, the source sand would stay by Black's side to protect him. However, Earth's Retribution was an AoE control skill. The pressure on Wuxia was quite heavy. Even if he had a recovery method, Han Chi could not easily use it. After that, Black summoned the shadow of a woman formed by a golden bird. He was still standing beside Black. However, Han Chi was still unable to determine the nature of this Fae until now. He was unable to determine this Fae species. Han Chi kept having the feeling that this female phantom was very similar to the killing heart guanine that the Sanskrit guanine snake condensed from snake-shaped musical notes. If that was the case, after fighting for so long, he had not even forced out the Fae's main body. The 8 cattails that suddenly appeared behind Black had already retracted. However, these 8 cattails undoubtedly belonged to a Fae. This Fae's ability was used by a spirit chi professional. Yet it was able to shatter the Sanskrit guanine snake's all-out attack. This made Han Chi feel an abnormally huge pressure. Moreover, Black still had a plant Fey that had performed outstandingly in the Radiance 100 sequence selection that had not been used. Apart from that, Black had used some unknown method. It was able to see through his Fey's ability. In a battle between Spirit Chi professionals, the most terrifying thing was the exposure of Fey's abilities and exclusive skills. Han Chi did not know that Black could see through his Fey's abilities and exclusive skills. It was because Black was a Class 4 or above creation master. Or was it because one of Black's Feys had a detection ability? No matter which one it was, Han Chi's heart had been possessed by the devil. The sense of security that he had felt was completely gone. Han Chi let out an angry roar. It was as though he wanted to roar away the uneasiness in his heart. Immediately after, a purple snake-shaped ring appeared out of nowhere on Han Chi's left ring finger. After this purple snake-shaped ring appeared, he immediately felt the aura of a sacred source life form. He knew that this ring should be the same as the Sacred Pursuit sword in Gao Feng's memory-eating music box before they had been fused. They were all artifact-type sacred source life forms. He checked the snake-shaped ring. He found that it was called the Oath-Revolving Snake Ring. It was a dark-type sacred source life form with the function of snake's love. Snake's love, subjective creation of a love concept that treats snakes as wives. In this state, the snake Fey's strength and ability can be transferred to oneself. The deeper the love, the higher the ability after the transfer. This kind of amplification due to love cannot be eliminated through any effects before the love is destroyed. After seeing the Oath-Revolving Snake Ring's ability, Lin Yuan could not help but feel that his worldview was a little distorted. What a pervert. But to be honest, a sacred source life form like the Oath-Revolving Snake Ring seemed to be quite suitable for Duan He. Even if Duan He could not contract the sacred source life form, the Oath-Revolving Snake Ring would still be a good choice. If he was lucky enough to hold the artifact made from the Oath-Revolving Snake Ring, his strength should be greatly enhanced. Moreover, Duan He was a henpecked man and had true love with Ziyao. With the artifact made from the Oath-Revolving Snake Ring, Ziyao no longer had to worry about Duan He cheating. The sacred source life form, Oath-Revolving Snake Ring, was a pinnacle class 3-star life form. Lin Yuan did not feel that it was strange. It had to be known that Zhong Zai's sacred source life form had only been promoted to Class 4 at the Dark Knight Assembly a few months ago. Furthermore, everyone had different priorities when it came to improving their strength. Lin Yuan, for example, had not placed his Golden Wing of the Desolation Bloodline Fey within the scope of his strength. This was because the Golden Wing strength had just been promoted to Gold. It would be instantly killed once it was pulled out. Lin Yuan was a typical example of not pouring resources into the Desolation Bloodline Fey. The main reason Lin Yuan had done this was to be able to give the Golden Wing the most optimal evolution method. If the Golden Wing only wanted to eat dragon liver, it would eat the dragon liver of the main dragon species Fey. If it wanted to drink phoenix blood, it would drink the phoenix blood of the main phoenix species Fey. Although Lin Yuan did not know what the ability of Han Chi, a middle-rank demon, was. However, Lin Yuan had basically grasped Han Chi's trump card. The sacred sword in Lin Yuan's hand made a sword flower. Then the sacred sword suddenly turned a pure white color. The originally simple sacred sword bloomed with dazzling holy light. An aura that far exceeded that of a fantasy breed suddenly erupted on the general execution stage. Below the stage, Lian Shen suddenly exclaimed. A pinnacle myth 2-phase attack. Why does it contain the smell of the world? Chapter 17-19. The Goddess of Compassion's voice was very loud. It was immediately heard by Han Chi, who was on the stage. When the Moon Empress heard the Goddess of Compassion's words, she immediately snorted. She said in a deep voice, Concubine Lian, the younger generation of our two major federations are having a showdown. Don't think that you're the only one who can feel the strength of the attack. The Goddess of Compassion pursed her lips. Knowing that she was in the wrong, the Goddess of Compassion did not argue with the Moon Empress. She was just surprised to see Black brandishing the pure white holy sword. One must know that the strength of an attack was not the most important thing. In a battle between experts, the realm of an attack was more important. The attack of a peak myth 2 Fey had the aura of a creation seed. It was really unusual. This attack with the aura of the world collided with the myth 2 attack. That aura of the world allowed her attack to gain the upper hand in the collision. After Black unleashed this attack, the sky turned dark. The Goddess of Compassion's gaze no longer fell on Han Chi. In the Goddess of Compassion's eyes, Han Chi was basically equivalent to a dead person. The Goddess of Compassion could not be bothered to put any attention on a dead person. The Goddess of Compassion's words seemed to be a reminder to Han Chi. The goddess of compassion's words were actually a reminder to Han Chi. The goddess of compassion had revealed the strength of Black's attack. If Han Chi wanted to fight against it, there was only one way. That was to sacrifice. Only by performing a sacrifice would Han Chi have a chance of blocking this attack. Otherwise, only death would await him. With that thought, Han Chi gritted his teeth. He looked at Black, who was holding the pure white holy sword, with grief and indignation. His eyes were filled with hatred and resentment. Black had just used the Bright Snake's ability, Bright Snake Divine. Thinking about it, he should have a certain understanding of the effects of Bright Snake Divine. However, through the sacred source lifeform's oath around the snake ring, he had absorbed all the main phase strength into his body. The strength that he had displayed was far from what the Bright Snake's main body could compare to when it used Bright Snake Divine. He had fused with the snake Bone Fear Ghost. His physique was already so strong that it was shocking. If Han Chi had originally absorbed the power of the Bright Snake and the Sanskrit Guanyin snake, it would have been difficult. Now, with the strength of Han Chi's physical body, he could easily control these two forces to fight. Han Chi planned to go all out and fight for a sliver of a chance to survive. According to the Bright Snake Divine ability, he wanted the Bright Snake of the floating world to reach its peak state. He also needed to sacrifice himself. That was the only way for the Bright Serpent of the floating world to make another breakthrough after breaking through a grade. Could be said that once the skill was used, no matter what the final outcome was, he and the Ukiyo Di Mingshi would definitely die. However, the Sanskrit Guanyin snake's skill, Feathered Serpent God. It could allow the Sanskrit Guanyin snake to burn its own bloodline and sacrifice its own body. Protect a target. It didn't matter what kind of sacrifice the target was making. The final result of the sacrifice was borne by the Sanskrit Guanyin snake. Right now, Han Chi planned to absorb the Sanskrit Guanyin snake to keep himself alive. As long as he could win this general execution battle. Even if he had truly become a cripple, he had still protected the glory of the Freedom Federation. At that time he would definitely receive preferential treatment. In fact, the Majesties might even think of a way to recover themselves. At the thought of this, Han Chi, who had clearly chosen to abandon his two snake species phase, suddenly changed his mind. She looked at the Ukiyo Di Ming snake and the Sanskrit Guanyin snake affectionately. Immediately after, the sacred source lifeform's oath surrounded snake ring's effect, snake's love activated. The power of the Sanskrit Guanyin serpent and the Ukiyo earthly bright serpent surged into the body of the devilized Han Chi. At the same time, the Ukiyo land snake used its bright snake connection skill. Han Chi also sacrificed himself. But under the protection of the Sanskrit Guanyin snake's skill, Feathered Serpent God, Han Chi, who had sacrificed his physical body, was still standing on the back of the bright snake of the world unscathed. Both the motionless earth serpent and the Sanskrit Guanyin serpent hissed in pain. The bodies of the Sanskrit Guanyin snake and the Ukiyo earth bright snake were disappearing bit by bit. The two snake phase souls were also constantly dissipating under the burning. In the end, only Han Chi himself was left on Han Chi's side. The two huge snake phase had already disappeared. Lin Yuan was aware of this situation. It should be the snake demon that had possessed Han Chi. It had a special ability. Otherwise, even if the motionless earth serpent and the Sanskrit Guanyin snake sacrificed themselves, in a short period of time, their physical bodies would not perish so thoroughly. Han Chi raised the Class 5 treasure artifact, the demon lizard Fang Blade. It merely swung forward. Those wild snakes that were burning with flames were all killed by Han Chi's attack. These wild snakes' vitality and spiritual power were quickly replenished into Han Chi's body through the treasure artifact, the demon lizard Fang Blade. At that moment, 13 carriages suddenly flew out of Lin Yuan's pure white sacred sword. After these 13 carriages flew out of the pure white sacred sword, they kept galloping in the sky. Unbeknownst to them, 13 Valkyries' bodies formed by holy light suddenly appeared on the carriage. These Valkyries wore armor and had cloaks that fluttered behind them for nearly 100 meters. As the carriages ran around, they suddenly pulled out the sword at their waist. In an instant, a rain of light sprinkled from the sky. Lin Yuan raised the sacred sword and used his unparalleled movement technique to quickly approach Han Chi. Han Chi also twisted the 5 or 6 snake tails that were intertwined behind it. Like an arrow that had left the bow, it attacked Lin Yuan. When it got close, it was about to engage in close combat. Han Chi's grayish-black vertical pupils suddenly expanded. It directly burst the corners of Han Chi's eyes. It caused Han Chi's originally jujube-sized eyes to suddenly become the size of eggs. The black whites of his eyes were stained with blood. It carried a hint of malevolence and coquettishness. Han Chi's vertical pupils, which had been enlarged by 4 times, seemed to have turned into a beautiful snake that was constantly twisting its body and seducing Lin Yuan. This was the unique charm aura of a devil. It was enough to lead a strong-willed person to fall into the bottomless hell. They would become a chess piece that the devil had conquered and played with in the palm of his hand. Han Chi used the snake devil's impurity power to try his best to seduce it. It indeed caused Lin Yuan's mind to tremble slightly, even though Lin Yuan's mind was already extremely firm. However, Han Chi's charm and seduction made Morbius spontaneously use its passive ability, Calm Mind. As Morbius' strength continued to increase. At that moment, Morbius had become a Gold X/Fantasy V Fae. Through Calm Mind, Lin Yuan could be immune to most negative effects. It had to be known that when Morbius was Silver X/Fantasy V, this would allow him to remain conscious when the strange plant seed entered his body. Han Chi originally thought that Black would be under his control. In the worst-case scenario, Black's sword-swinging speed would slow down. However, Han Chi was wrong. 7017K. Chapter 1720. Not only was Black not controlled by him, but it did not even slow down. He used the pure white sword in his hand to clash with his Class 5 treasure lizard snake blade. Han Chi staked everything on one throw. Through the sacred source life form, Oath encircling snake ring, Black had absorbed his 2 snake phase. He had also used the snake devil's ability to absorb the bodies of his 2 phase. Subsequently, he had increased his physical strength and strength. Now, a casual attack from Han Chi had the might of a pinnacle myth 2 Fae. The strength of his physical body was equivalent to the sum of a middle-rank abyss devil, the floating earth snake and the Sanskrit guanine snake. Han Chi thought that after the clash with Black Sword, he would have the upper hand. He did not expect that Black Sword was not as simple as he had imagined. After the first clash, Han Chi brandished his saber 3 times. He struck the sacred sword in Black's hand 3 times. The attacks forced Black to retreat repeatedly. However, Han Chi had not yet enjoyed the feeling of having the upper hand. Out of the 13 Valkyries in the sky, 4 of them suddenly flew down. They pulled out their long swords and slashed at themselves. Han Chi's sacred source life form and the middle-rank abyss devil snake bone fear ghost were all dark-type existences. The light attribute had a strong restraining effect on him. Han Chi realized that even if he used the demon lizard snake blade to slice these 4 Valkyries into pieces, before the light attribute energy completely dissipated, the light elements would continue to condense into the Valkyries' appearances and attack him. Han Chi calculated that he had to slice the Valkyries in half 3 times before the Valkyries would dissipate. Han Chi calculated that the 4 Valkyries that flew down should be because he had clashed with Black Sword 4 times. It was probably because he had touched the sword in Black's hand 4 times. Back then, if he had slashed 13 times in a row, he was afraid that he would be attacked by the 13 Valkyries now. At that moment, Han Chi saw Black coming up to meet him. Han Chi wanted to use his combat skills to prevent the demon lizard tooth blade from colliding with Black's pure white sacred sword. However, Black seemed to see through his actions. Every strike landed squarely on his demon lizard tooth blade. The Valkyries circling in the sky all flew down. The arena seemed to have become a training ground for the 13 Valkyries of light. After several collisions, Lin Yuan, who had retreated to the back, realized that his hands were shaking. It was very difficult to hold the holy sword in his hand. If he hadn't been using the lily to heal his arm. After these few clashes with Han Chi, Lin Yuan's bones would probably shatter into dust. Lin Yuan knew that unless he executed more sword skills, he would not be able to defeat Qin Feng. Otherwise, if they fought head-on, they would definitely not be Han Chi's match. There was a time limit for Han Chi to fuse with the devil and increase his strength through the Bright Snake Divine Connection. Every minute and every second was exceptionally precious to Han Chi. And now Han Chi was being held up by this sword technique of his, the Martial God's Protection Strike. Martial God's Protection Strike was a defensive sword technique. In battle, every time he was attacked by an enemy, he would receive help from the Valkyrie. Before the Valkyrie ran out of energy, she suffered no damage. They would not dissipate. Of course, being attacked would consume the light energy in the Valkyrie's body. Of the 13 Valkyries, 2 had been killed by Han Chi. The light on the 6 Valkyries became dimmer and dimmer. On the other hand, Han Chi's attacks also became fiercer and fiercer, becoming more and more violent. Han Chi knew very well that the time he could fuse with the snake bone fear ghost was limited to 3 minutes. The Bright Snake Divine Connections effect was also around 4 minutes. This meant that he would start fusing with the devil snake. He had to end the battle within 3 minutes. He used the sacred source lifeform to surround the oath snake ring. He absorbed the myth Tu Fei that the bright snake of the floating world had obtained through the bright snake divine connection into his body. He was relying on the strong physique he had obtained after fusing with the snake bone fear ghost. Even if he was separated from the snake bone fear ghost, he still would not give up the bright snake divine connection's power. Then, this power would directly explode him into pieces that filled the sky. There was only 1 minute left. Han Chi simply reserved 1/5 of the spiritual power in his body. The rest of the spiritual power was poured into the demon lizard Fang blade. Han Chi placed the demon lizard Fang blade at his waist. He spun it 3 times. The 3 indiscriminate attacks directly killed these Valkyries. However, Han Chi did not know that during his battle with the Valkyries, many people were watching. The gazes of everyone watching the battle were focused on the Fae that Black had just summoned. The Lien God had an extreme pursuit of beauty. In the Lien God's heart, the most beautiful and the most adorable. It was those fairy source-type lifeforms. Thus, the Lien God had been working to make fairy source-type lifeforms into dolls. She hung them on the windmill in front of her palace. But at this moment, the Lien God felt that, no matter how many fairy source-type lifeforms there were, they could not compare to the one by Black's side. A butterfly that flew high in the sky. This butterfly was purple in color and there were many layers of purple. Thousands of purple colors gathered on this butterfly's body. It was as if one could see all the colors in the world with one glance. This butterfly was willing to fly in the sky. It made people involuntarily feel that this was the luck of the heavens. The Fae's beauty was extreme. It was probably the appearance of this purple butterfly. As the purple wings flapped, sparkling scales sprinkled down. It was beautiful to the soul. Those who followed Black on Star Web knew that he had the legendary Fae, the blue flash purple butterfly. However, the blue flash purple butterfly's appearance was far from this purple butterfly's. If the blue flash purple butterfly was compared to a cobblestone, then this purple butterfly was like a glass-type imperial purple jade. However, this purple butterfly was somewhat similar to the blue flash purple butterfly that Black had summoned. This purple butterfly must have evolved from the blue flash purple butterfly. After Lin Yuan summoned Zishao, he gave her an order. Purple Cloud, use Silent Scale Powder and use 2 exclusive skills at the same time. After Purple Firmament heard Lin Yuan's order, it flew toward Han Chi. All the Star Web viewers couldn't help but hold their breaths as their hearts tensed up. Although Black was Hui Yao's hero, all the Star Web viewers could not help but want to curse Black fiercely. Why did you send such a beautiful little butterfly to fight? However, at that moment, the Radiance Federation's 13 High Lords, the Freedom Federation's High Lord, the Compassion Goddess, Li Su had arrived. Second page revival was hidden in the team. Lan Sun, who was in the Azure Federation, narrowed his eyes. They all thought of a legend. They didn't expect this legend to be true. It seemed that there was no suspense in this battle. At that moment, the Star Web viewers only saw this beautiful purple butterfly. The moment the Valkyrie's phantom disappeared, it flapped its wings toward Han Chi and sprinkled beautiful pinkish-purple scales. 7017K. Chapter 1721. The light reflected by the pinkish-purple scale powder shone on the 5,000 square meter execution platform. It enveloped 10% of the purple light. The purple light was dreamy, and all the audience could not help but be mesmerized. It was as though their hearts and souls were being attracted by this pinkish-purple color and could not escape. Purple Sky's ability was Silence Scale Powder. It could release an adhesive scale powder with a silence effect. The target that came into contact with the scale powder would not be able to communicate with Spirit Chi to release abilities. At the same time, the target would also absorb the opponent's Spirit Chi. Under the effect of Spirit Chi, the scale powder would absorb Spirit Chi to multiply. This ability did not have much effect on Han Chi at the moment. Han Chi did not need to release the ability now. He only needed to use the energy contained in his body to slash the class Demon Lizard Fang blade. Lin Yuan did not point to Purple Sky using the Silent Scale Powder to harm Han Chi. Purple Sky's main killer move was not the exclusive skill Scale Powder Halo. Scale Powder Halo reflected strong light through its own scale powder, causing the target to suffer optical pollution. It caused dizziness and temporary blindness, which was a kind of group control. Han Chi was now in a state of dizziness and blindness. He could casually slash the Demon Lizard Fang blade and attack the surroundings indiscriminately. It allowed the concentrated attacks to have a defensive effect during the period of blindness. In fact, Lin Yuan could summon Purple Sky because of the exclusive skill Mind Soul Beauty Goddess that it had obtained when summoning a fantasy breed. Purple Sky itself was a kind of extremely beautiful fae that was appreciated by the world. Purple Sky could use the spirit and soul power contained in its body. It used spirit and soul power as a catalyst. It magnified beauty to an unlimited extent. It created a charm and attraction effect on the target, causing the target to enter a state of affection. The target that entered a state of affection would instinctively want to keep everything from Purple Sky's main body on its body forever. The target that was in a state of affection would feel proud of collecting Purple Sky's main body's things. The middle-rank demon that Han Chi had just contracted had used a charm method to seduce Lin Yuan. Lin Yuan decided to give it a taste of its own medicine. He would let the Freedom Federation's unique demon know. In terms of charm, you demons are just the younger brother. Under the scale powder, Han Chi, who was clearly blinded, attacked the surroundings indiscriminately. He breathed in the scale powder that Purple Sky had sprinkled. It was as though the scale powder that Purple Sky sprinkled was Han Chi's most beloved object. A large amount of scale powder was absorbed into Han Chi's body. The devil hidden in Han Chi's body and fused with him was naturally affected as well. The affected devils resisted for a short while. He subconsciously fought with Han Chi for the scale powder that he absorbed into his body. A large amount of scale powder gathered in the body of the snake bone demon. As a result, Snake Bone Fear of Ghosts lost the ability to activate the spiritual energy within its body and unleash its skills. Without waiting for the intoxicated Han Chi to react, Yi Qingtang's eyes lit up. Han Chi's body, which had fused with the snake bone and the ghost, instantly swelled up in the purple mist and exploded into pieces. And from Han Chi's body, a body covered in sharp bone spikes fell down. The snake's sharp tail rose high in the air. The end of the tail pierced through the throat and strangled the strange life form. This life form had a timid expression on its face. But under his cowardice, his eyes were filled with sinister schemes. The aura of depravity on his body made people feel very uncomfortable. This strange and terrifying creature was precisely the snake bone fear ghost that had suffered heavy injuries due to the energy explosion in Han Chi's body. According to normal circumstances, Han Chi's death would not have happened. At this moment, Snake Bones was afraid of ghosts, so he should not be breathing. However, this snake bone fear ghost did not seem to be affected at all. Li Su immediately knew that this was a devil produced by the Freedom Federation's Devil Cathedral. It would not be like a bloodline of desolation fae, which would disappear with the death of the contractor. Instead, it could survive independently. Of course, Lin Yuan could not jump to a conclusion without careful research on this snake bone coward. This snake bone fear ghost wanted to escape, but it was bound by the quicksand vortex that suddenly appeared. At that moment, Li Su could finally see the devil's true data. With a glance, Li Su realized something. The devil's data was different from Faye's. The devil's abilities and exclusive skills could only be activated and used after fusing with a spirit chi professional. This made the devil look like a kind of companion life form. Furthermore, Han Chi had fused with this snake bone fear ghost earlier, and its strength had increased by a huge margin. That was why its physical body had reached the level of a myth breed fae. It was enough to withstand the power of a pinnacle myth too. It could be said that the devil could be called the most outstanding kind of possession life form. Putting aside the fact that this devil was already seriously injured. Even if it was not seriously injured, it would still be able to wrestle with the Diamond X/Fantasy V Source Sand. It might not be able to defeat the Source Sand. After all, the Source Sand had always been nurtured by Lin Yuan in the best way. When Li Su had turned the Source Sand into a cage to capture the snake bone fear ghost. This general execution duel was because the main general had died. It was completely over. As for the two independent 100 sequence members who had ascended the general execution stage. Before Han Chi, when they had no choice but to attack, they had already died on the general execution stage. After ascending the general execution stage, they had not been able to unleash their strength. However, they had been killed by their own people. No matter how one looked at it, it was full of irony. At that moment, the Star Web audience was in a complete uproar. In this duel, Lin Yuan might not have displayed his full strength. However, this duel could definitely be called an evenly matched duel. This general execution duel would be decided in one duel. The duel lasted for nearly 20 minutes. It allowed all the Radiance Federation's citizens to know how the top spirit chi professionals of the younger generation fought. Horizon Maple Leaf, black is too strong. What kind of duel is this? Why do I feel that such a duel is beyond my understanding? Black is probably stronger than the top 10 of the 100 sequence. Memories in the wind, hee hee. I'm from the Myriad Generals Pavilion, a top faction. Based on my understanding of the 100 sequence, I'm afraid that apart from His Majesty's disciples, Lu Jie and Xia Qin, no one else has the ability to fight against Black. Light of Tomorrow, Black Bull Pen. After being a fan of Black for so long, Black has once again become the hero of the Radiance Federation. Purple Star. This time the people that the Freedom Federation sent were killed by Black. There won't be any conflict, right? Past Black. Do you think that the purple-haired youth that Black killed on the Freedom Federation's side did not have the intention to kill? If it wasn't for Black's strength and its unexpected resistance to poison, Black would have been dead after being bitten by that little blue snake. The spectators on Star Web were constantly discussing. The entire Star Web was in an excited and uplifting mood. It was because of a youth wearing a silver mask. The Freedom Federation and the Radiance Federation had collided, and the Radiance Federation had won. 7017K. Chapter 1722. It was different from the cheers and excitement on Star Web. The candidates and the Radiance 100 sequence members were surprised by Black's strength. They were proud of him. But now, everyone was holding their breath nervously. After the general execution battle, the team battle would be held soon. The examinees and the members of the Liberal 100 sequence present were the clearest about their own abilities. Especially the Radiance 100 sequence members who had just been selected, the 91st to the 100th. For example, Li Nao and Zhang Zihao could be 100% sure. If the two of them went up, they would definitely be like the two independent 100 sequence members. Even if they were affected by the battle's aftermath, they would lose their lives. Han Qi was using the demon lizard Fang blade the entire time on the general execution stage. Under Black's restriction of only being able to use one precious treasure, Black chose to use an artifact to protect the two Radiance 100 sequence members who were on the stage. Black was really gentle. Black was standing on the general execution stage. There were two new suns above his head. The shadow of a woman whose entire body was fiery red was holding a phoenix neck pipa in her hand and standing beside Black. The purple butterfly that had bewitched all the audience landed on the silver mask on Blackie's forehead. Before that, purple snake-shaped devil was completely controlled and bound. Even if there was a trace of danger, Black did not release the two Radiance 100 sequence members. Such a Black could be called a true leader of the Radiance 100's younger generation. Even compared to the Radiance envoy Lu Yifan, he was not inferior and equally dazzling. The Moon Empress looked at Lin Yuan in surprise. The strength that Lin Yuan had displayed was beyond the Moon Empress' imagination. The Moon Empress had always known that Lin Yuan was very strong. However, she did not expect him to be so strong. She had only become Lin Yuan's master for less than a year. When Lin Yuan had become her master, he had still been a rookie who could not resist a platinum Fei. But now, after a few months of growth, Lin Yuan was already standing at the peak of the Radiance 100's younger generation. Or rather, it was not just Radiance. In the entire Origin world, Lin Yuan was an absolutely dazzling existence. It was hard to look away from his dazzling brilliance. The Moon Empress could feel that the other 12 excellencies were looking at her in surprise. They were probably thinking about how she nurtured her disciples. The Moon Empress actually had many ideas on how to nurture Lin Yuan. But the Moon Empress realized something. Lin Yuan did not like receiving his help. In other words, he had always been self-sufficient as a creation master. Not only did the Moon Empress not want to investigate all of this, but she also didn't want to. He had always wanted to help Lin Yuan hide. However, it was precisely because of this that the Moon Empress felt that Lin Yuan was a prodigy. To put it bluntly, even if he didn't become Lin Yuan's teacher, he wouldn't be able to do so. As long as Lin Yuan didn't cause any trouble in the early stages and was targeted by others, he wouldn't be able to escape. He had a certain amount of time to develop and accumulate. If Lin Yuan wanted to, he was still qualified to take a step forward. By becoming a Radiance 100 sequence member, he would fight for the position of a Radiance envoy 2 years later. At that moment, the Moon Empress' eyes slowly turned from shock to pride and honor. On the Azure Federation's side, Lan Sun frowned several times. Lan Sun frowned. This had nothing to do with Black. It was all because of Yin Lin. Lan Sun could see that Yin Lin was very nervous about Black the whole time. When Black was attacked, Yin Lin would feel uneasy and angry. When Black gained an advantage, Yin Lin would be excited and happy. It could be said that Black's situation in the arena completely controlled Yin Lin's emotions. This was something that Lan Sun could not understand. Then Lan Sun had an idea. He suddenly recalled the relationship between Yin Lin and the Moon Empress disciple Lin Yuan. Starting from the Radiance Federation, Yin Lin had only been moved by these two people. Lan Sun took a few glances at the Moon Empress and thought to himself, Black should be the same person as Lin Yuan. If that was the case, then when the Freedom Federation was targeting the Radiance Federation, the Radiance Federation would not be able to survive. The Radiance Federation had also set up a huge trap for the Freedom Federation. If his guess was correct. As an Azure envoy, Lin had already joined the fray. For the Radiance sect, he had ruthlessly cheated the Freedom Federation. Thinking of this, Lan Sun sighed. He seemed to have predicted that after the team battle, both the Radiance and Freedom Federation would be defeated. A conflict was bound to break out. He only hoped that when the time came, the Azure Federation would not be dragged into this. However, seeing Lin's current state, was it really possible? On the Freedom Federation's side, Li Yi frowned. It could be said that the current situation was completely out of Li Yi's expectations. Under normal circumstances, Han Chi should not have appeared in the Independent 100 sequence. It was for this plan that Li Yi had asked Du Miao to arrange a seat for Han Chi in the Independent 100 sequence a year in advance. Otherwise, given Han Chi's situation, there was no need for him to become a member of the Independent 100 sequence. Du Miao had not publicly accepted Han Chi as a disciple. However, he had secretly taught Han Chi for more than 5 years. Han Chi was Li Yi who had informed Du Miao of his plan. He had borrowed it from Du Miao. Now that Han Chi was dead, Li Yi felt that when he returned to the Freedom Federation, he really had no way to explain to Du Miao. Du Miao would probably go crazy if his 5 years of hard work went to waste. After Han Chi died, Lian Xin's face did not have a trace of other expression. It was as if the one who died was not the Freedom Federation's prodigy. Lian Xin was still reminiscing about the feeling she had felt from Black just now. The Freedom Federation's mission to the Radiance Federation was Li Yi's idea, and it had nothing to do with her. Lian Xin's purpose for coming here was to ensure Qian Yu's safety. At the same time, Lian Xin had another plan in mind. That was if it was possible. Lian Xin planned to take Black away from the Radiance Federation. Then she would properly check Black inside and out. She would see what Black was relying on to make her feel a trace of palpitation. Qian Yu's face was gloomy. On the Radiance Federation's side, Black's strength was simply too astonishing. After a duel, even Qian Yu, who was a Freedom envoy, was unable to completely see Black's depths. It was an attack from the 8 cattails. Qian Yu could not help but tremble in fear. It was a known fact that this attack was not unleashed by a Fey. It was used by Black through the Fey's ability. The power was at least 30% weaker. Yanling, Kaihua, and Yu Changjian. There was even a hint of delight on his face. Han Chi was the same age as the trio and was in a competitive relationship with them. In the future, they would definitely compete for the position of Freedom Envoy and Freedom Knight. Now there was one less opponent. This reduced a lot of pressure on the trio. On the Freedom Federation's side, there was a sorrowful look on their faces. Only that young man with short white hair remained. At that moment, Lin Yuan, who was on the general execution platform, suddenly realized something. The snake bone fear ghost which was bound by him had changed. 7017K. Chapter 1723. Originally, Snake Bone's timid ghost was only seriously injured. The source sand wrapped around Snake Bone's timid ghost's wrist and ankles and extracted chain swords. These 8 chain swords, which were made of radium-uranium steel, completely locked Snake Bone's timid ghost in place. However, in less than 3 minutes, Li Tianlan's expression changed. Snake Bone's timid ghost suddenly leaked a large amount of vitality for unknown reasons. Lin Yuan did not use the source sand to attack Snake Bone's timid ghost, but it died under the source sand's restraint. Lin Yuan's plan to capture a middle-rank demon alive completely failed. The dead Snake Bone's timid ghost's body gradually turned into an eye-like black crystal. The moment the black crystal appeared, Lin Fan's eyes widened. Yanling, Kaihua, and Yu Changjian looked at this black crystal with greedy eyes. This eye-like black crystal was very important to the 3 of them. On the battlefield, Han Chi had been the defeated party. Everything that Han Chi and the 2 Liberal 100 sequence members had been controlled by Lin Yuan, who was the victor. Everything had been controlled by Lin Yuan, who was the victor. Previously, when Lin Yuan had been training in the Dimensional Rift, the source sand would spontaneously help Lin Yuan collect the spoils of war. After losing the control of the floating earth serpent, the source sand became active. It devoured all the spoils of war on the battlefield and put them into the guard sand. At that moment, the guard sand's palm was holding 3 pieces of spatial equipment. The Class 5 Demon Lizard Fang Blade, the Class 4 Snake Arm Guard, and the Class 4 Terror Serpent Ring. There was also the Class 3 Sacred Source Life Form, the oath encircling the Snake World's remains. Any one of these items could be considered a huge fortune. especially the 2 Class 4 artifacts and 1 Class 5 artifact. Such resources could already be considered a Federation's foundational resources. A Class 5 Creation Master would need more than a month to refine a Class 4 artifact. A Class 5 artifact would need nearly 2 months to refine. The 3 artifacts did not include the Sacred Source Lifeform's body. They would need to occupy a Class 5 Creation Master's body for nearly 4 months. Lin Yuan took out a diamond face storage box that he had never used before in front of the Freedom Federation's envoys. He stored all these items in the diamond face storage box. Then he walked off the stage. Other than Lu O, the Freedom Federation's envoys, no one mourned Han Chi's death. But the younger generation, including Chen Yu, all gritted their teeth and looked at Black. He wished he could break Black's bones and drain Black's blood. Lin Yuan ignored these gazes and calmly walked down the general execution stage. The moment Lin Yuan walked off the general execution platform, cheers rang out on Star Web and in the real world. And he, Zhongzhe, Gulang, Wuxia, and Gaofeng all knew that Lin Yuan was Black. Among these people, and he and Zhongzhe were the most shocked. Both of them had fought with Lin Yuan before. The strength that Lin Yuan had displayed in this battle was the same as the battle against Zhongzhe at the Nyx Assembly. Moreover, the trump card he used in the battle with Anha on the island was completely different. When Lin Yuan had fought against Zhongzhe, he had used the Jackdaw's Withering Strike to establish his victory. When he was fighting in he still used the Jackdaw's Withering Strike. Later, when he had helped the Mother of Bloodbath awaken its favored spirit bloodline, he had executed the Whale Sea Leaping Wave Strike. The Whale Sea Leaping Wave Strike made he think that this was Lin Yuan's full strength. On the sea, Lin Yuan had executed the Whale Sea Leaping Wave Strike with the advantage of the geographical environment. It was enough to contend with a Myth 3 Fey. At that time, and he had already been convinced by Lin Yuan after he had executed the Whale Sea Leaping Wave Strike. However, Lin Yuan was also holding this sacred sword. He had executed a sword skill that Zhongzhe and he had never seen before. Both of them suddenly felt that even if they had improved, if they fought again they would not be Lin Yuan's match. Their improvement in strength was also related to Lin Yuan. If not for that heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearl containing the goddess Gossamer, Zhongzhe's Desolation Bloodline Fey, the Burning Sky Centipede, could not purify its bloodline and master the top-notch Red Plum Meteorite Fire. Without the nearly 1,000 heavenly maiden-grade elemental pearls that Lin Yuan had given, and he could not have allowed the mountain-suppressing centipede and the awakening hibernation earth dragon to purify and mutate one's bloodline. Seeing Lin Yuan walk back to the team, Lu Jie subconsciously took 2 steps forward and stood beside Lin Yuan. Lu Yifan gave Lin Yuan a thumbs up. This scene was seen by the Star Web audience. It was equivalent to Black obtaining the Radiance Envoy's affirmation. Those who had been guessing what kind of phase Black had on Star Web. After this battle, the nervousness in their hearts dissipated. They kept posting and discussing the phase that Black had revealed. Lu Shuang's live-streaming room exploded again after 8 tails appeared behind Black. However, as a Pinnacle King-class expert, Lu Shuang did not keep commentating like before in order to collect traffic. Lu Shuang silently prayed in her heart. In this general execution battle, the enmity between the Radiance Federation and the Freedom Federation was completely formed. The team battle would undoubtedly be much more tragic than the general execution battle. The duel between the two sides would probably only stop when one side was completely annihilated. At this moment, there was a group of people in black armor, all of them wearing copper masks on their faces. The masks were engraved with numbers. This group of people had a total of 12 people. Just as they were about to reach the Radiance Federation, they encountered 4 carriages. These 4 carriages were very strange. The 4 carriages were not pulled by the 4 different colored stone horses in front of the carriages. These 4 different colored stone horses were lifted by 4 groups of ascetics who were suffering from different hardships. These ascetics who were suffering from hardships were pulling the carriages forward at a fast speed. Each carriage hid a powerful and obscure aura. At that moment, the small group of people wearing copper masks intercepted the 4 carriages. The leader of the small group said in a cold voice, "The 4 horsemen under Ta Dian, Ying Zhu and Second Page. Death riding on the green horse, famine riding on the black horse, war riding on the red horse and plague riding on the white horse. After 1,000 years we meet again. Are you guys also going to the Radiance continent?" After being intercepted, the ascetics who were pulling the carriages stopped in their tracks. The ascetics who were pulling the green carriages were all dead. They had turned into soul-burning undead creatures. These undead creatures' bodies were deathly pale, and their clothes were ragged. It was unknown how many disasters they had suffered when they were alive. It was such a group of people who were pulling the palace-like green carriages. The ascetics who were pulling the black carriages were all as thin as a match. The ascetics who were 1.8 meters tall were definitely not more than 25 kilograms. Their skin was wrapped around their bones like an iron cage covered by a cloth. The ascetics who were pulling the red carriages were all well built. However, each of them had injuries from the war. Fresh blood kept flowing out of the ascetics' wounds. 7017 K. Chapter 1724. As for the holy white carriage, the ascetics pulling it were all infected with the plague. Their bodies were covered with pustules and they kept vomiting. The plague miasma surrounded the ascetics. It corroded the air and made sizzling sounds. At that moment, the door of the red carriage was opened from the inside. A red sarcophagus was pushed out of the carriage by some unknown force. After the red sarcophagus appeared, the sarcophagus cracked. After the battle 3,000 years ago, the Tower Cannon and the Epic Temple signed an agreement. The Tower Cannon's 8th page closed the world for 3,000 years. Our Tower Cannon did it. On the other hand, your Epic Temple couldn't find that so-called sage for 3,000 years. You've been hindering our Tower Cannon's plan. Upon hearing that, the figure wearing the copper mask who spoke just now heard it. He took off his mask and took a deep breath. He spat in the direction of the red sarcophagus. A force that could split the sea by 1,000 meters crashed into the red sarcophagus. A muffled sound was heard. The Tower Cannon has done a lot of tricks in the past 3,000 years. The four of you have endured for 3,000 years, and your powers shouldn't have fully recovered. At your peak, our small team couldn't take down the four of you. But now, I alone can capture the four of you. We have to investigate something in the Radiance continent. Before we finish, the people of the Tower Cannon are not allowed to step in. Otherwise, I won't spit out level 5 mutated water next time, but level 6 mutated water. After saying that, the man put the copper mask on his face again. The figure in the red sarcophagus didn't say anything. At that moment, the door of the white carriage opened. The white sarcophagus was pushed out by an unknown force. A feminine voice rang out. In that case, the four of us will go back first. But the Tower Cannon and the Epic Temple will remember this debt. The figure wearing the copper mask heard that. The debts of the Epic Temple and the Pagoda Cannon are endless. If we really want to settle the debt, it'll be the 4 temple attendants who will settle it with you 8 pages. It's not up to me, Chio 21, to settle it with you. If it wasn't me leading the team this time but Lord Chio Fun, you won't be able to escape this time. The ascetics pulling the cart crawled around after receiving the order. Finally, with great difficulty, he straightened his tormented body. He dragged the 4 carriages and headed in the opposite direction of the Radiance continent. The young man standing behind Lien Shen was stunned by the scene. The purple flame of the black candle in his eyes flickered slightly. Then the expression on his face relaxed. It was as if he didn't care about any of this at all. When Chio 21 led the team and was about to enter the Radiance continent, he suddenly seemed to have received some kind of command. A look of disbelief appeared on his face. Chio 21 said to the 11 bronze-masked figures behind him, "Lord Hall Attendant wants us to return to the shrine. It said that the totem in the shrine has evolved." Hearing that, although the other 11 figures were all wearing masks, they didn't dare to make a move. However, at that moment, those people all revealed joyous and excited expressions. Then the 12 figures flew toward the epic sacred hall at a speed even faster than when they had arrived. Inside the temple, 4 attendants were kneeling on the ground. They raised their heads and stared at the totem in the hall without blinking. Originally, there was only the totem god on the totem. There was also Lord Sage, who was above the Lord Totem and had his hand in the center of the totem god. But at this moment, a totem in the shape of a cat with 8 tails had appeared beside the sage. There was a bird-shaped totem with a corona on its head, a bone lotus totem, and a butterfly-shaped totem. No one knew what these 4 new totems meant. They also didn't know what these 4 totems represented. Why did they appear beside Lord Sage? However, the changes in the totems proved that Lord Totem God and Lord Sage definitely existed in this world. And some kind of change had occurred. The 4 attendants respectfully kowtowed to the 4 newly appeared totems 3 times. During the kowtowing process, no one noticed. It was unknown when Lord Sage's other hand had grasped a treasure sword that was held by a young girl. However, this sword was behind the sage's stone carving. Only when the light in the temple was the brightest could one see a trace of it. After exiting the temple, among the 4 of them, the only female voice spoke. Since Lord Totem God and Lord Sage's totems have both changed, It means that even if the epic bell is in chaos, it won't be affected. Before the main world is completely in turmoil, we should still follow the original plan and continue to wait. This female voice's suggestion was obviously approved by the other three. At that moment, the female voice continued. The totems have already changed, there is no need for the four of us to continue to sleep. The power accumulated in these 3,000 years should now be completely absorbed into Lord Totem God's body. After saying that, the female directly returned to her temple. The excess power accumulated in her body for many years. In the process of kowtowing, it was transmitted into Lord Totem God's totem. The other three, one in front and one behind. They all made the same choice. At that moment, Lin Yuan suddenly felt that his wrist was unusually hot. At that moment, Morbius' voice suddenly sounded in Lin Yuan's mind. Partner, I don't know why, but there is a sudden surge of huge power in my body. This power has all been transformed into the power source and stored. From now on, as long as there are no special circumstances, I should not fall into a deep sleep again. Furthermore, I can squander this source energy. My power source can do many things. Hearing that, Lin Yuan felt a little strange. Lin Yuan had always thought of Morbius as a kind of fae. Lin Yuan had never heard of a fae's body, an example of a sudden surge of huge power. However, since this was beneficial to Morbius, Lin Yuan did not think too much about it. He planned to return to the Return from Faraway Manor after this team battle, and then have a good chat with Morbius. Lu Wenqing, who was originally in charge of this duel, stood up again and said, "In the first general execution battle, the Freedom Federation's main general is dead. The Radiance Federation's side wins. Next, let's start the team battle. I wonder how the Freedom Federation wants to compete in the team battle? According to the rules of the 10,000 Nations Conference, the losing side of the general execution battle would decide how many people to enter the team battle. As for the rules of the team battle, it would be decided by the winning side." It could be said that Lin Yuan's slaughter battle had given the Radiance Federation an advantage in the team battle. Chapter 1725. When Qian Yu heard Lu Wenqing's words, his expression darkened. Qian Yu glanced at the masked black with a fearful expression. Qian Yu finally knew that there were tough bones in the Radiance 100 sequence. It was the same as the situation on his side. Han Qi's strength definitely could not compare to Luo. Han Qi was merely a disciple that His Holiness Du Miao had yet to accept. Furthermore, His Majesty Du Miao had many people that he cared for, and his resources were distributed to too many people. Thus, no matter how one looked at it, even if Han Qi was accepted as a disciple by His Holiness Du Miao, he was still the one with the lowest status among all the disciples of His Holiness. But Luo was taken in as a disciple by Her Highness Nana when he was young. Moreover, there were rumors that Luo was the son of Her Highness Nana. Nana doted on Luo a lot. Han Qi only had 3 treasured weapons on him. However, if Luo were to take out all the treasures he had on him, he would have more than 10. After all, Her Majesty Na was the leader of the Freedom Federation. He was the most qualified to be called God. At the same time, Nana was also a Class 5 creation master. Qian Yu and Luo had known each other for 6 to 7 years. Qian Yu had always been envious of Luo's resources. Moreover, the devil that Luo contracted wasn't a middle-ranked devil like them. Instead, it was a superior great devil. Qian Yu wasn't sure about the Radiance Federation's side. Were there any other hard bones hiding? The strongest people on his side were Luo, Yanling, Kaihua, Yu Changjian and Qian Yu. Since he was the one who had confirmed the number of players on his side, Qian Yu naturally set the number of people to be 5. This was the most advantageous number for their side. Originally, Qian Yu had the thought of killing all the Radiance 100 sequence members. But now, the battle between Black and Han Qi. This caused Qian Yu to lose a portion of his sharpness and become more cautious. The leader, Qian Yu, did not discuss with the others. He said directly, "Our side's rule is that the number of people going up is 5. As the victor of the general execution battle, the Radiance faction has raised 3 requests. Our Freedom Federation needs the right to deny it." After Qian Yu expressed his stance, Lu Wenqing, who was Hui Yao's holiness, did not say anything else. Lu Yifan said, "Out of the 3 restrictions, the Freedom Federation can remove one of them. This is your right. I don't need you to remind me about this." Lu Yifan turned around and looked at Zhongzhe, Lu Jia and Gao Feng. Finally, his gaze landed on Lin Yuan. Clearly, the Freedom Federation had limited the number of participants to 5. As the leader, Lu Yifan had already chosen the person he wanted to go on stage. However, he was different from the Freedom Envoy Qian Yu. As the captain, Lu Yifan was willing to listen to the opinions of his teammates. After knowing that they didn't need to go on stage. At the same time, Li Nao, Zhang Zihao and the others felt relieved. He was also worried about Lu Yifan, Black and the others. At that moment, Lin Yuan had released the 2 Radiance 100 sequence members in the Treasure Cave Golden Toad. After the 2 of them were summoned out of the Treasure Cave Golden Toad, Lin Yuan's eyes lit up. He glanced at the arena. Then, with an excited expression, he bowed toward Lin Yuan. After the 2 Radiance 100 sequence members were stuffed into the treasured artifacts made from the Treasured Cave Golden Toad's skin and stomach pouch, they had already died. Thus, he had been worrying about the situation on the field. He was afraid that Black would not be able to fight 1 against 3. Since Black was still alive, it meant that he had won the duel. The 2 Radiance 100 sequence members bowed toward Black to thank him for saving their lives. Lin Yuan thought for a moment and said to Lu Yifan, "Our first request is that no one uses artifacts." Currently, the only artifact that Lin Yuan was familiar with was the Treasure Cave Golden Toad Brocade Pouch, which was useless in battle. The Treasure Cave Golden Toad Brocade Pouch was the only artifact that Lin Yuan was proficient in using, and it was useless in battle. Although Lin Yuan did not know Lu Yifan, he knew Zhongzhe, Lu Jie and Gao Feng. After all, the Radiant Sex Education method was after the Fei system was completely formed. Then, according to the characteristics of the Sacred Source life form, they would match artifacts. Lu Yifan was the 3rd Radiance Envoy. As the 3rd Radiance Envoy, Lu Yifan definitely had an artifact. He definitely had an artifact. However, with only 1 person using an artifact, he would undoubtedly be at a disadvantage against 5 people using artifacts. Thus, no one used an artifact. Instead, it gave his side the advantage. In the previous duel, Han Chi had used the Class 5 Demon Lizard Fang Blade. His combat strength had increased by at least 20%. Most importantly, the Class 5 Demon Lizard Fang Blade provided Han Chi with an endless supply of energy. If not for the Class 5 Demon Lizard Fang Blade, Han Chi could only rely on the floating earth snake to eat dirt. Chimei, which had already transformed, could not hold on any longer. This duel allowed Lin Yuan to deeply understand how helpful a suitable artifact was to a spirit chi professional. Hearing Black's suggestion, Lu Yifan nodded. Then he frowned. Lu Yifan also understood. The Freedom Federation and the Radiance Federation's education methods were different. Restricting artifacts was the most beneficial choice for his side. However, the Freedom Federation would definitely know about it. Then, in such a situation, the Freedom Federation had the right to remove a requirement. It was very likely that they would remove this requirement. After Lu Yifan expressed his thoughts, Yi Shiwen said Lu Jie, Zhongzhe and Gao Feng's expressions turned grave. According to Zhongzhe's personality, he would definitely say, "So what if the opponent has an artifact? Our side is not afraid." However, Zhongzhe knew. This duel was not just about life and death. It was about the Radiance Federation's dignity and glory. However, Zhongzhe thought for a long time and could not think of a solution to the situation that Lu Yifan had mentioned. Previously, Lin Yuan did not understand the rules of the Myriad Nations Conference. He knew that his side could make 3 requests, and the opponent could only reject 1. Behind the silver mask, a smile appeared on his face. According to Yin Lin's information, the Freedom Federation's envoy team had a trump card. One of their trump cards was the combination of Yanling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian's Sacred Source lifeforms. Gao Feng had the Sacred Source lifeform, the music box. That way they would not have to worry about the combination of the 3 Sacred Source lifeforms. However, the Freedom Federation's envoy team did not know about this. Compared to artifacts, the combination of 3 Sacred Source lifeforms was undoubtedly much stronger. Zhongzhe, Gao Feng and Lu Jie had not participated in the duel. The Freedom Federation did not know much about the 3 of them. Therefore, the Freedom Federation's envoy team could not confirm whether they had a suitable artifact to use. Therefore, their second request was for no one to use a Sacred Source lifeform. The Freedom Federation's trump card was restricted. They would definitely not be willing and would not agree. 7017K. Chapter 1726. Therefore, even though he knew that this was a 2-way restriction, he still chose to cross out the second requirement. Lin Yuan voiced out his thoughts. The expressions on Lu Yifan, Zhongzhe, Lu Jie and Gao Feng's faces relaxed at the same time. Lin Yuan had used the Sacred Source lifeform to unleash a Myth 3 Fei attack on the Commander Execution platform. However, as long as an offensive Sacred Source lifeform was nurtured properly, it would basically have the ability to fight above its rank. Zhongzhe's Sacred Source lifeform, the Heaven's Blazing Fire, had already reached 5 stars. Zhongzhe used the sacred source lifeform's heavenly blaze to open the gates of heaven and summon the flaming angel. The leading archangel had the strength of a myth 3. Thus, on the side of the Freedom Federation diplomatic mission, he was not afraid of Lin Yuan's sacred source lifeform. He gave up on denying the second request. In fact, these 2 requests from the Radiance Federation did not need to be restricted anymore. However, since there was such an opportunity, no one would be foolish enough to give it up. In the end, the 5 of them discussed. In order to ensure the safety of Gaofeng, a pure support, each team could choose 1 member. This member could not be attacked before the other 4 members fell to the ground. This kind of request was made in the 10,000 States Conference. The federation that had pure support or healing spirit chi professionals in their team would always mention it. It was not a special request. After Lu Yifan revealed these 3 requests, Fang Qiu's expression changed. The faces of the Freedom Federation's side immediately became very interesting. After witnessing Black's strength, Yu Changjin, who had some complaints about the 2 disciples of His Holiness, could not help but say, "Damn it! The Radiance Sect's 2 requests are obviously restricting our performance. You all saw the Radiance 100 sequence test just now. That youth in white is Cicada Cry's disciple. It's obviously a pure support. The 3rd request has great benefits for the Radiance Federation. Based on the abilities displayed by Cicada Cry's disciple, if we keep the 3rd request, we won't be able to fight a war of attrition with Hui Yao. I might be a support-type spirit chi professional, but I'm more inclined to control and attack. At the same time, Yanling Kaihua and I will link our sacred source lifeforms. I don't have to worry about my safety at all." Yu Changjian's complaints could be said to be the thoughts of Yanling and Kaihua. The 2 of them wanted to agree with Yu Changjian. But when they saw the expression on Chen Yu's face, they shut their mouths. Han Yu glared at Yu Changjian and said, "Yu Changjian, this duel was ordered by His Highness Li Su. Her Holiness the Compassionate Goddess is watching from behind. Are you complaining because you are dissatisfied with His Majesty? In this battle either we win or we die. This is the destiny of the 3 of you. Rather than complaining here, why don't we think about how we can win this battle?" Chen Yu's words were reasonable. It was also a fact. The vague meaning in his words was like a sharp thorn that stabbed into the hearts of Yanling Kaihua and Yu Changjian. Yes, if they lost this battle, the 3 of them would definitely die. The 3 of them knew about the relationship between Her Holiness Goddess Lian and Chen Yu. He had no idea why Her Highness the Compassionate Goddess was so protective of Chen Yu. However, the Freedom Federation had previously held a life-and-death battle for the Swamp World's territory. As a freedom envoy, Chen Yu represented his family. However, he was schemed against by a few people from the other party's clan and almost died. In the end, the Pity Goddess appeared and protected Chen Yu. Even for Chen Yu, they did not hesitate to put pressure on the family that had 2 contemporary Radiant Light Knights. In the Freedom Federation, this matter had once spread among the top families. The goddess of Lian, who was not supposed to be here, had arrived. It was obvious that if Chen Yu was really in a life-threatening situation, the Compassion Goddess would also lend a hand. Since Her Majesty Na had allowed Luo to come over, she must have given him something to protect his life. Moreover, with the relationship between Her Holiness Goddess of Pity and Her Holiness Na, it would be impossible for her to win. Her Holiness Goddess Pity probably wouldn't mind protecting Luo. Then he would go to Her Highness Na to exchange for a large number of fairy source-type lifeforms. This was also the reason why Chen Yu stood out in this life-and-death battle between the 5 of them. He only said that the fate of the 3 of them was victory or death. At this moment, Yanling Kaihua and Yu Changjian. He could not help but feel a sense of sorrow in his heart. However, this mournful emotion only appeared for a moment before it turned into a strong desire to fight. The 3 of them were not sure why Chen Yu and Luo had been chosen by Her Holiness Goddess Pity and Her Highness Na. However, the other Freedom Envoys and the current Freedom Knights had been chosen by Her Holiness. It was all because they had unparalleled potential. They had also proven themselves through certain things. This team battle with the Radiance Federation was now. It was the best opportunity for them to prove themselves. If they seized this opportunity and used the Sacred Source Lifeform's linkage ability, which could not be replaced by others. Basically, it was a done deal to become the next Freedom Envoy. At the very least, they could be ranked among the Freedom Knights. Moreover, if the 3 of them performed outstandingly, after returning to the Freedom Federation, they might have a chance to be accepted by Her Holiness as a disciple. Kaihua, who had this thought, suddenly felt that his fear of Chen Yu had disappeared. Kai Hua looked straight at Chen Yu and said, "In this battle, the three of us will naturally use our full strength, even if we have to use that move. But before we go on stage, I hope that Lord Chen Yu can guarantee. Show all your trump cards even if they will damage your potential." Chen Yu could not help but be furious. What was Kai Hua talking about? Her Holiness Goddess Pity and Her Holiness Li Su were watching from behind. In the middle of a battle, how could he possibly hide anything? If Kai Hua's words were to be heard by the Freedom Federation's families and Her Holiness. If the Freedom Federation's families and Her Holiness heard this, what would he become? Especially his family, which was on bad terms with several other families. If those families heard this, they would definitely use this as an excuse. Chen Yu coldly said to Kai Hua. "Kai Hua, be clear about your position. What right do you have to speak to me like this? As a freedom envoy, what do I need to guarantee you?" After saying that, Chen Yu coldly glanced at Yan Ling and Yu Changjian. He then spoke to Lu Yifan in a clear voice. "The Freedom Federation has chosen to invalidate the Radiance Federation's second request. Both sides can use the Sacred Source life form." Chen Yu's words made Lu Yifan, Lin Yuan, Zhong Zhe, Gao Feng and Lu Jie completely relax. Lu Jie placed his hand on his chest. In this battle, Lu Jie clearly stated that his duty was to protect. In order to protect Lin Yuan no matter the price. His Sacred Source life form should also be humming. He just hoped that after he used it, Lin Yuan would not blame him. 7017K. Chapter 1727. Lu Jie had risked his life for Lin Yuan once before. That time, the two of them had been sucked into the upgraded Class 3 Water World Dimensional Rift. That was when the two of them were facing a strong enemy alone. This time it was a 5-on-5 team battle. However, Lu Jie's thoughts were the same. As Lu Jie's strength grew, he was also able to control the situation on the battlefield. If there was an attack that was about to hit Lin Yuan, Lu Jie hoped that if he used his body to block in front of Lin Yuan, he could stop the attack from hitting him. He did not want to hurt Lin Yuan through his body. Chen Yu crossed out his side's second request. Therefore, the first and third requests were in effect. Both sides could not use artifacts during the battle. Furthermore, he chose one person in the team. Before the other four were defeated, this person could not be attacked. Lu Yifan replied. "Since our side has made a request, your side has also used its authority to remove one request. According to the 10,000 Nations Conference's team battle rules, both sides have half an hour to prepare. Once this half an hour is over, both sides will be teleported to a random location on each side." After saying that, Lu Yifan led the team to a building not far away. This building was the place where the two sides held a battle meeting before the battle. The Spacetime Elder took out two shell-like objects. He handed them to the Spacetime Attendant behind him. The Spacetime Attendant took the two ethereal mother shellfish fragments that had been marked in advance and brought them in front of the Freedom Envoy, Chen Yu. The Spacetime Attendant said, "These two shellfish fragments have been marked in advance and are one-time items for group teleportation. After using them, they can be teleported to a pre-marked location in the battle venue. To be fair, the Freedom Federation will choose first." Chen Yu took one of the shellfish. The Radiance Federation could not fake this kind of matter. Moreover, the terrain often only affected Spirit Chi professionals in one-on-one duels. In the team battle, everyone's phase and Sacred Source life forms were different. There was a huge difference in the reliance on the terrain. The terrain that might be beneficial to one of the teammates might be disadvantageous to the other. The Spacetime Attendant asked Chen Yu to take one of the shellfish fragments. He sent the other shell fragment to Lin Yuan and the others, who had already arrived in the conference room. On the Freedom Federation's side, Chen Yu didn't immediately lead his team to the conference room to discuss countermeasures. Kai Hua was hoping that Chen Yu could swear. This was because Kai Hua had already made up his mind to fight for his life. Before going all out, Kai Hua wanted his teammates to give him a guarantee and confidence. That was all. Chen Yu was right. Yan Ling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian's backers were still a little weak. Unlike Chen Yu and Lu O, who were confident that Her Holiness would stand up for them in this confrontation between the two great federations, Kai Hua didn't have any malicious intent, but he was reprimanded by Chen Yu so harshly. He had no intention of making any promises to Kai Hua, Yan Ling, and Yu Changjian. Even if Yan Ling had always respected Chen Yu, the way she looked at Chen Yu couldn't help but change. Especially Chen Yu's words. "I am the envoy of freedom. What do I need to promise you?" Although Chen Yu was talking about Kai Hua, he was also talking about Yan Ling and Yu Changjian. Yan Ling said in a low voice, "I am the one favored by the three Her Holiness. I am currently the one favored by the most Her Holiness among the younger generation of the Freedom Federation. Sir Envoy, before we fight for our lives, I think you need to give us a guarantee. Putting Kai Hua and Yu Changjian aside, even if my sacred source life form doesn't link with them, I will still be able to defeat them. With the uniqueness of my main life form, I can still rank in the top 10 among the younger generation. Sir Envoy, I, Yanling, want a guarantee from you. Yanling had originally spoken up for Kai Hua and Yu Changjian. If Kai Hua hadn't been rebuked by Chen Yu, perhaps Yanling wouldn't have said that. Yanling knew very well that if she said that, she would offend Chen Yu. Offending the current envoy of freedom wouldn't do her any good in the future. Yanling felt that she was a good friend to this small team, but her words were always hurtful. She had always said whatever she wanted to say without thinking about others. Kai Hua, Yu Changjian and Yanling were a team. Because Yanling was a girl and the three of them worked together, Yanling's sacred source life form was in the dominant position. Hence, the two of them had tolerated Yanling. In fact, they had long been dissatisfied. Yanling's words were meant to elevate her position. She wanted Chen Yu to give her face and make a promise. However, Yanling's words had pushed Kai Hua and Yu Changjian aside. She had placed herself above Kai Hua and Yu Changjian. The way Kai Hua and Yu Changjian looked at Yanling had completely changed. Yanling had relied on her own strength. Without the two of them, how could she have obtained the three majesties' favor? Kai Hua and Yu Changjian both felt that the two of them were helping Yanling. Yanling looked at Chen Yu. She didn't know that Kai Hua and Yu Changjian's gazes had changed. Just as Yanling thought that Chen Yu would give her face, Chen Yu looked at her coldly and maliciously as he enunciated each word. Yanling, in my eyes, what difference is there between you and a clown? You were born into a mid-tier family established by a branch of the Yan family, one of the 16 big families. You were originally not worthy of the surname Yan. Because you have some talent, you were given the surname. I, Chen Yu, was born into the Chen family and am the young master of the Chen family. In terms of background, you are not worthy of being mentioned in the same breath as me. In terms of talent, you are better than me? Without Kai Hua and Yu Changjian, how much higher can your position be compared to Han Qi? No matter how many majesties you have, none of them will accept you as a disciple. Kai Hua is not worthy of speaking to me like that. Do you think you are? Under normal circumstances, when Chen Yu was in a good mood. Now that Yanling had said these words, Chen Yu might really give her face. This was because Chen Yu had decided to bet his life on this battle. Otherwise, if he really lost, even if the goddess of compassion intervened and saved his life, if he returned to the Freedom Federation, not only would he no longer be worthy of being a freedom envoy, he would also bring shame to the Chen family. Chen Yu could still vividly remember the fate of his brother who had brought shame to the Chen family. Hence, when Chen Yu heard Kai Hua's words, he was so furious. Chen Yu forcefully suppressed his anger, but Yanling came at this moment. Chen Yu could no longer suppress his anger, and it poured out crazily towards Yanling. 7017K. Chapter 1728. Previously, Chen Yu had treated Kai Hua to remind him of his status. So now, what Chen Yu said to Yanling was basically equivalent to a personal attack. Her family background had always been Yanling's sore spot. Because of this background, Yanling's heart was extremely inferiority complex and sensitive. That was why it was hard to empathize with others. She was sarcastic and arrogant and always hurt others. Yanling originally thought that she was favored by the three majesties. No one would mention his origin anymore. But now Chen Yu had brought it up. It was equivalent to a blow that shattered Yanling's heart, causing her to lower her head. Yanling could not help but stab Chen Yu with 100 knives in her heart. As an A-rank spirit chi professional, Chen Yu already had the ability to produce a spirit chi shield to block the sound. Thus, the viewers on the internet didn't know about the Freedom Federation's diplomatic mission and didn't go to the conference room for a meeting. Why are you still standing here? The upcoming battle was related to the Radiance Federation's glory. This caused the Star Web, which was supposed to be in an uproar because of the battle between Black and Han Qi, to be in an uproar, suppressing his boiling passion. Everyone was looking forward to cheering together after they won the team battle. Of course, if they lost the team battle, there would be no need to cheer. This was because of Hei's outstanding performance in the general slaying battle. Lu Shuang and Poison Beauty's live streaming rooms returned to the first and second most popular spots, just like before the Radiance 100 sequence had started. In the past, Poison Beauty's live streaming style had never been serious. But this time, Poison Beauty's expression turned serious. He clasped his hands together and said seriously, "You all know about my main Fei. I'm too weak to make any useful combat analysis. Everyone, why don't you pray for the next team battle with me? Believe in these 5 Radiance heroes, believe in Black, believe in Lord Radiance envoys. Lu Jie Zhongzhe Lord Gao Feng. Poison Beauty's words resonated widely in the live streaming room. To these ordinary people, they could not participate in the battle for the Radiance Federation's dignity. However, praying and cheering were also ways to participate in this battle. In fact, these people had indeed joined the battle. Their prayers for Lin Yuan turned into golden spots of light. It appeared in the shrine in the depths of his soul. Previously, the shrine in the depths of Lin Yuan's soul had countless golden spots of light like stars. He could draw on the power of faith in these light spots at any time. But now, due to the increase in the number of light spots, Lin Yuan suddenly realized that the shrine in the depths of his soul had actually changed. These star-like spots of light formed a nebula. It surrounded Lin Yuan's will. As these nebulas circulated, he felt as if his soul was going to undergo some kind of change. However, it seemed that there was still a long way to go before it could truly change. Since Bai Lan had formed a contract with Lin Yuan, her bloodline had been purified multiple times. The immense power of faith and pure water elemental energy could strengthen Azure's bloodline. Lin Yuan had already fed Bai Lan the water elemental energy extracted from the elemental well. The purest water elemental energy in the world was absorbed by Bai Lan. Bai Lan's body showed some obvious changes. Originally, Blue had gained sentience in the water through an exclusive skill. After Bai Lan gained sentience, it continued to purify its bloodline. Lin Yuan noticed that Blue's sentience had transformed and was heading toward the merfolk. This was also the reason why Lin Yuan would transform into a merfolk form when he fused with Bai Lan. Now Bai Lan's body was being nourished by this pure water elemental energy. It gave birth to an extremely noble bloodline aura. This bloodline aura made Lin Yuan feel that it had a trace of an apostle's aura. However, it also seemed to be more mysterious and profound than an apostle's aura. Lin Yuan could not figure it out for a while, so he did not think about it anymore. Lin Yuan felt that if he fused with Bai Lan, this noble bloodline that was born in Bai Lan's body should also fall on him. Lin Yuan felt that after fusing with Bai Lan, his form should undergo a huge change. When Poison Beauty led everyone to pray, she did not know that her actions would be of such great help to Lin Yuan. However, in the process of praying, it was just like what Poison Beauty said in the live streaming room. She had unknowingly ranked Black ahead of the Radiance Envoy and Lu Yifan. Perhaps it was because Black had created too many miracles. Poison Beauty believed that Black would definitely be able to continue creating miracles. Suddenly, Poison Beauty had an idea in her mind. After becoming a Radiance 100 sequence member, Black still didn't have a title. Poison Beauty suddenly felt that the title, Silver Masked Miracle, was very suitable for Black. Regardless of whether there will be a day when Black takes off his mask. However, that silver mask had ignited the passion of too many people. It also brought too many surprises to many people. Let too many people know that miracles really could happen. On Poison Beauty's side, due to the limitations of her personal abilities, she was unable to effectively analyze the battle situation. But Lu Shuang was different. After all, Lu Shuang was a peak king-level expert, and she had already grasped the opportunity to become an emperor-level expert. Therefore, with Lu Shuang's strength, he was qualified to analyze and explain the battle between the Freedom Federation and the Radiance Federation's younger generation. In the previous battle between Black and Han Chi, Lu Shuang had been commentating the entire process. This allowed many ordinary people to see the situation of the battle clearly. At the very least, he wouldn't go so far as to watch the show in confusion. The bullet screen in the live streaming channel was urging Lu Shuang to analyze the upcoming battle. Lu Shuang pondered for a moment and said, "It's very easy for star web streamers to casually analyze a battle situation. But I don't understand the situation of the Freedom Federation's envoys. I also don't know the trump cards of our Radiance Federation's lords. This battle is a battle where the 5 lords are betting their lives. I don't want to exaggerate our side too much. If the 5 lords win, it will seem like this battle is too easy. Brothers, they are really betting their lives in this battle. I will commentate during the battle later. But I'm not a creation master, and the sacred source life forms involved in this battle are already beyond the scope of my knowledge." Lu Shuang usually spoke straightforwardly during her live streaming. But at this moment, every word that Lu Shuang said was said after deliberating for a long time. Lu Shuang could be responsible for every word that she said. Luo watched as Chen Yu, Yanling, Kaihua, and Yu Longsword were in a stalemate. He couldn't help but reach out and grab the white hair on the top of his head. Then he spoke. Big brother Chen Yu, in order to let the three of them feel at ease, please make a guarantee. Just as he finished speaking to Chen Yu, Luo raised his hand and said, I, Luo, will bet my life in this battle. In this battle, I, Luo, will stake my life on the line. I won't be stingy with anything I can do, including the greater devil within me. 7017K. Chapter 1729. After saying that, Luo stretched out his hand and placed it on his chest. Luo had always been expressionless. His solemn and firm guarantee immediately warmed the hearts of Yanling Kaihua and Yu Changjian. According to Chen Yu's previous relationship with Yu Changjian Kaihua, and Yanling Kaihua Yu Changjian, and Yanling would find it hard to work together with Chen Yu in the upcoming battle. Yanling's words had even caused a rift to appear between her, Kaihua, and Yu Changjian. However, Luo was Nana's disciple. He had set an example with such a high status and assured them. This had allowed Yanling Kaihua and Yu Changjian to let go of the grudge in their hearts. Even if there were still cracks in their relationship, they had to give it their all in this competition. Otherwise, there would be no chance of survival. Chen Yu had already been blown up by Yanling's words and lost his composure in anger. When he first heard Luo's words, Chen Yu thought that Luo was targeting him. As the current Liberty envoy and the leader of the Freedom Federation's envoys, when had he become so insignificant? You Luo are Nana's disciple. I, Chen Yu, am Lady Compassion Goddess's only caretaker. Apart from me, Lady Compassion Goddess doesn't care about anyone else. Therefore, after Chen Yu became the Liberty envoy, he had always been regarded as Her Holiness Goddess's disciple. Chen Yu wanted to reprimand Luo. However, after seeing Luo personally raise his hand to swear, Chen Yu felt a lot more comfortable. He knew that Luo had done this to suppress the dispute on his side. He had to go and prepare for the upcoming team battle. There was only half an hour left for the pre-battle meeting. However, the stalemate had already lasted for almost 15 minutes. Chen Yu found that Her Holiness Goddess and Li Su behind him were looking at him with probing gazes. Chen Yu immediately knew that if he did not take any action, even if Her Highness the Compassionate Goddess did not say much, Her Highness Li Su would definitely flip out. His Holiness Li Su had a special purpose for this envoy mission to the Radiance Federation. If his side could not win this battle, Li Su's purpose would not be able to be officially implemented. For this goal, Li Su did not hesitate to cooperate with Pagoda Cannon. It was said that he paid a huge price. If something went wrong, even if Her Holiness Goddess Lian protected him, he would not be able to escape. Once he returned to the Freedom Federation, his days would definitely not be easy. With this thought in mind, Chen Yu raised his hand and said to Yanling Kaihua and Yu Changjian, as a Freedom envoy, I, Chen Yu, must set an example. In this battle, even if I become a cripple, I will still go all out. If Luo uses a greater devil, I can also use my sacred source life form Hidden Sea Muse. You know the price I have to pay to use the sacred source life form Hidden Sea Muse. Every time I fuse with the Hidden Sea Songstress, the mermaid royal bloodline in her body will be consumed. It will take a long time for her to recover. I think I have shown my sincerity by saying so. According to a spirit chi professional's common sense, Emperor-class experts would activate their spiritual power shields. Even a powerhouse with an eternal spirit item would not be able to hear the content of the conversation within the spiritual energy shield. Li Su was indeed looking at Chen Yu and the others with a puzzled expression. She did not know what Chen Yu and the others were talking about. From the looks of it, there seemed to be a conflict. Could it be that they were discussing the battle strategy later? The pitiful goddess looked at Chen Yu with a cold gaze. Her eyes were filled with dense killing intent. It was as if Chen Yu, the Freedom Envoy, was not her favored one. Chen Yu did not know that after an expert awakened their birth providence, if they were fortunate enough to step on the path to heaven, they could call themselves gods. Their spiritual energy would undergo a metamorphosis. The pitiful goddess called this spiritual energy divine sense. Through divine sense, the pitiful goddess could pass through the spirit chi professionals' spiritual power shields and hear the conversation of the spirit chi professionals within the spiritual power shields. This situation was known to the Freedom Federation's three Her Eminences, who were qualified to call themselves gods. However, they did not tell the other eminences. Therefore, Li Su, who was standing at the side, did not know that the pitiful goddess had just calmly listened to the drama and was indifferent. It was as if the people who were about to compete were not the Freedom Federation's envoys. It was as if the glory of the Freedom Federation had nothing to do with the pitiful goddess. Not only did she not step forward to stop them, but she even felt that Luo had stepped forward to end this conflict. It had affected her mood to watch the show. Only when Chen Yu said that he wanted to use the sacred source life form, hidden sea songstress, and fuse with her, the pitiful goddess's expression could not help but change in that instant. The pitiful goddess favored Chen Yu because Chen Yu's sacred source life form, hidden sea songstress, had the mermaid bloodline. The pitiful goddess had spent a lot of effort over the years. That was why Chen Yu's sacred source life form, hidden sea songstress mermaid bloodline, had evolved into the mermaid royal bloodline. But now, Chen Yu had not hesitated to use the sacred source life form's mermaid royal bloodline. Once the hidden sea songstress mermaid royal bloodline was used up, for a long time, Chen Yu would need to restore the sacred source life form's mermaid royal bloodline. It would no longer allow the bloodline to advance. This was equivalent to pushing back the pitiful goddess's hopes for a period of time. In the end, the pitiful goddess did not react. She only looked at Chen Yu with an exceptionally cold gaze. It was like a lion looking at a disobedient little wildebeest that it had reared for a long time. The pitiful goddess was the Freedom Federation's majesty. Stopping Chen Yu from using the sacred source lifeform's hidden sea songstress bloodline was equivalent to going against the Freedom Federation's interests. Secondly, the pitiful goddess did not want her secret to be known by the Freedom Federation. The Moon Empress should have crossed that line as well. Otherwise, she would not have been able to take out a pure eternal heart. Therefore, the Moon Empress must have heard what Chen Yu had said. It was fine if the Freedom Federation's majesty and the Pagoda Canon knew. If his weakness was in the Radiance Federation's hands, the Radiance Federation wouldn't be able to control it. Chen Yu would not be able to take her away no matter what. The pitiful goddess's expression changed in a flash. It was very easy for an expert who had embarked on the path of ascension to conceal their emotions. Therefore, in the war conference room, Chen Yu, who was hosting the meeting, did not know that he had unknowingly angered the pitiful goddess. There was nothing much to say in 15 minutes. Not to mention that Chen Yu could not tell Kai Hua Yanling and Yu Changjin all his trump cards. Even Luo, who had spoken up to stop the conflict, could not do it. Although Yanling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjin usually worked together. However, the three of them all hid some of their trump cards. Therefore, the entire war conference was held. It was basically no different from not having been held. 7017K. Chapter 1730. In fact, Yanling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjin all felt that they had a greater supporting role in the team. They hoped to be the one who could not be attacked by the other party as per Hui Yao's third request. Yanling's words were the most direct. Kai Hua, Yu Changjin, I've always been the leader of the three of us. Just based on this point, I should occupy this seat. Kai Hua said unhappily. Yanling, in terms of team support, I'm slightly stronger than you. Moreover, Jian is the true support type spirit chi professional among the three of us. Even if I don't fight for this position, Jian is more suitable than you. Kai Hua knew very well that if he really fought for it, he would not be able to beat Yu Changjin. Yanling also had an advantage over him. It was better for him to withdraw and help Yu Changjin fight for an opportunity. This way he would be doing Yu Changjin a favor. Compared to interacting with Yanling, Kai Hua was indeed more comfortable interacting with Yu Changjin. Moreover, Yanling's method of excluding the two of them. Even now, Kai Hua was still fussing over it. The dispute that had been suppressed by Luo had formed a rift. The fight for benefits was once again stirred up. Luo was not good at expressing her emotions and was on good terms with Han Qi. Han Qi's death had already made Luo extremely angry. Luo disliked Yanling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjin for a long time. Luo treated Han Qi as a friend. However, Yanling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjin had always been excluding and ridiculing Han Qi. At this juncture, there was another quarrel. Luo's eyes suddenly turned red. They were as red as thick blood plasma. Scarlet ghost patterns faintly appeared on Luo's cheeks. At this moment, even his hair was dyed with a thick layer of dark red that could not be dispelled. Luo's originally clear voice was filled with endless depravity and evil. The three of you shut up. Otherwise, the three of you won't have to fight later. I'll eat the three of you and I can borrow your abilities for one day. It's enough for this duel. Also, I'm very hungry. While speaking, Luo stuck out her tongue that was 100 times redder than a normal person and licked her lips. She glanced at Chen Yu beside her. As a freedom envoy, Chen Yu couldn't help but feel a chill down his spine. The way Luo looked at him was like a person who had starved for a week and smelled the aroma of meat. The ghost tattoo on Luo's face had already spread to her cheeks. This meant that Luo's contracted Great Devil bloodline had reached that level. Presumably, Her Highness Na should have given Luo the seed of Satan condensed by her great devil. Furthermore, Luo had even refined the seed of Satan. Otherwise, Luo's ghost tattoo wouldn't have reached such a level. Thinking of this, Chen Yu's gaze was half fearful and half admiring. Even if Her Holiness the Compassionate Goddess treated him, she wouldn't be able to reach half of what Her Holiness Na treated Luo. Her Holiness the Pitiful Goddess also had one of the 7 great devils. The Pitiful His Holiness had never said that he would condense the seed of Satan for him. He had only given her a devil seed produced from a middle-ranked devil's body. This caused Chen Yu to have some complaints in his heart. He had yet to refine the seed of Satan. A devil could only devour one seed of Satan in its lifetime. Chen Yu felt that he should wait a little longer. Maybe Her Holiness the Compassionate Goddess would give him the seed of Satan produced by the great demon. Chen Yu felt that apart from himself, Her Holiness the Goddess of Pity's attitude towards the younger generation was the only one. There was no way he would leave the seed of Satan to someone else. Luo's words and the aura he released. Yanling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian immediately became obedient. His body trembled uncontrollably. At this moment, the ghost tattoo on Luo's face faded, and his expression returned to that of acute Shota. He said, "Leave that spot for Yu Changjian. A support-class spirit chi professional that isn't adept at defense wouldn't have survived if he wasn't in this position. A spirit chi professional that is adept at support will be able to display the greatest effect in this position. Yanling, as a power offense class spirit chi professional, just do your job well." Speaking up to here, Luo turned to look at Chen Yu. "Big brother Chen Yu, there are still 5 minutes left. You're the captain, so you make the arrangements. I will do my best to obey your arrangements." Chen Yu blinked his eyes. "Arrangements? You've arranged everything that needs to be arranged. What else do I have to arrange?" Chen Yu could not help but sigh in his heart. It would be great if the Freedom Federation's Freedom Envoys had the same status as the Radiance Federation's Radiance Envoys. When the Radiance Federation's Her Holiness disciples saw the Radiance Envoys, they would normally address them as Lord. However, the Freedom Federation's Freedom Envoys had to face the Her Holiness disciples who were truly chosen by Her Holiness. Even if they did not have to lower their heads in greeting, they would still have to lower their heads when they had to fight. In the Radiance Federation's combat conference room, Lu Yifan, who was a Radiance envoy, recalled what he had said to him. He immediately asked, "You guys should have an understanding of each other's strength, right? I've heard about it from little he. We only have half an hour, which is very short. There definitely isn't enough time for me to understand your phase and sacred source life forms. Why don't you understand my main phase, the desolate bloodline Fei, and the sacred source life form?" Lu Yifan waved his hand. He was the first to summon his desolate bloodline Fei. Lin Yuan, Lu Jie, Zhongzhe, and Gao Feng did not expect Lu Yifan to be so frank. He had revealed all his trump cards in front of them. Lin Yuan had heard from he before. His senior brother was an extremely special defense-type spirit chi professional. At that time, Lin Yuan did not know that he's senior brother was the Radiance envoy Lu Yifan, who was ranked 3rd. It was only after hearing from Zhongzhe that Lin Yuan learned that the Radiance envoy Lu Yifan, who was ranked 3rd, was he's senior brother. The moment Lu Yifan waved his hand, Lin Yuan suddenly felt as though a huge mountain had appeared in front of him. The layers of mountains gave off a feeling of desolation. In this stretch of mountains there were many green peach trees. From time to time, green flowers would fall from the peach trees. On the tallest peach tree in the mountains, a green bird that was only half the size of a human was perched. This green bird had a white crane body and eagle feathers on its head. Its green tail feathers were not as gorgeous as a phoenix's, but there were 33 of them wantonly floating behind it. Lin Yuan could be sure that the scene in front of him was not an illusory skill. Instead, it was a manifestation of an aura. At that moment, Zhongzhe could not help but exclaim, "Big brother Yifan's desolate bloodline Fei has actually reached that level." Chapter 1731. The desolate mystic realm's bloodline of desolation Feis were the same as the devil cathedrals. They all had extremely strong bloodline distinctions. The devils produced by the devil church were divided into low-ranked devils, middle-ranked devils, and high-ranked devils. In other words, the so-called 7 great devils. Through proper nurturing, lesser devils had the chance to become intermediate devils. Lesser devils, on the other hand, had very little chance of evolving into greater devils. Of course, this was not absolute. After all, in the history of the Freedom Federation, there had been such a precedent. Among the bloodlines of the Desolate bloodline phase, those that were labeled as inferior devils were fays with the fake Desolate bloodline. A fae with a fake Desolate bloodline would only have a trace of a weak Desolate bloodline. It wasn't much different from a fae. However, a fae with a fake Desolate bloodline had to be nurtured. As long as one could find a way to stimulate a Desolate fae's bloodline, they would be able to kill it. In that case, a fake Desolate bloodline fae targeting a low-class devil could easily evolve into a true Desolate bloodline fae targeting a middle-class devil. True wilderness bloodline spiritual objects had already reached a threshold. For example, Zhongzhe and Lin Yuan's heaven-burning Ho and golden wings were true wilderness bloodline fays. This kind of spiritual object that was born with the bloodline of the true wilderness would have a high chance of reaching the realm of the great wilderness through bloodline enhancement after birth. In the Radiance Federation's Desolate mystic realm, there had never been a fae that was born with a great Desolate bloodline. As a result, it seemed that they were a bit weaker than the Freedom Federation's Devil Church. But in reality that was not the case. In the history of the Freedom Federation, there had only been 2 or 3 cases of a middle-ranked devil transforming into a greater devil. However, in the Radiance Federation, everyone's Desolate bloodline phase had reached the realm of the Great Desolate. When summoned, the corresponding image of desolation would appear. The image of desolation was the symbol of a spiritual object with the Great Wilderness bloodline. The Freedom Federation's overall strength had always been stronger than the Radiance Federation. However, he had always been rather fearful of the Radiance Federation. It was inseparable from these Great Desolate bloodline fays. After all, a Great Desolate bloodline fae was qualified to target a favored spirit. The Moon Empress was the only exception. She had used some unknown method to obtain the loyalty of the Weeping Holy Moon Beast, the chosen spirit. Each of the Radiance Federation's majesties was equivalent to having a favored spirit. This was the reason why the Freedom Federation didn't dare to take the initiative to attack the Radiance Federation. Now this reason should have been broken. That was because the Freedom Federation was about to have a 4th person, someone who was qualified to call himself a god. On the Radiance Federation's side, the Moon Empress was an exception. This caused the Freedom Federation and the Radiance Federation to once again enter a stalemate. The cyan bird that looked like a crane or a phoenix landed on Lu Yifun's shoulder. Lu Yifun said with a smile, "Little Zhe is right. My Desolate bloodline fae, the Peach Sky Azure bird, has indeed reached the level of the Great Desolate." However, the heavenly peach blue bird only stepped into the Great Wilderness a month ago. Thus, the image of famine looks relatively simple. Lu Yifun paused for a moment. He continued, "When you become Radiance envoys, you will be qualified to enter the Desolate arcane realm for seclusion. Only there can Desolate bloodline spiritual items transform from the true Desolate realm to the Great Desolate realm. The aura of desolation there is not present in the outside world." Zhongzhe nodded. His Desolate bloodline fae, Burning Sky Ho, had absorbed the heavenly maiden grade elemental pearl. However, Zhongzhe did not realize that his Burning Sky Ho's bloodline was improving from the true Desolate realm. Zhongzhe did not have time to ask his master, Bamboo Monarch. Now, Zhongzhe understood what was going on. Lu Yifun introduced his Desolate bloodline fae, the Peach Sky Azure bird, without holding back. He used Morbius ability, True Data, to check on the Peach Sky Azure bird. Fae name, Peach Sky Azure bird, Fae species, Bluebird main species / Desolate species, Fae grade, Suzerain 10 out of 10, Fae type, Wood / Soul, Fae quality, Mythii abilities Frowny face falling flowers, the summon green peach tree will drop flowers. When each petal lands on the target, it will form a flower shield. When the shield reaches 3 layers, it will turn into a flower battle dress. When the shield reaches 10 layers, it will turn into a small Peach Sky Azure bird that will protect the target. Heartless. When the Peach Sky Azure bird mercilessly treats a target, the flower shield, flower battle dress, and the small Peach Sky Azure bird will leave the target. At the same time, the shield's defensive ability will be converted into healing energy and transferred into the target's body. Amorous. The Peach Sky Azure bird will treat its own target with affection. The flower shield, flower battle dress, and the small Peach Sky Azure bird will enter a state of yearning for the target. After being shattered, the shattered shield's energy will be converted into spiritual power and injected into the target's body. Green Peach Demon. A young lady wearing a flower battle dress will appear under the summoned green peach tree. This young lady can use the spreading peach roots to restrain the target. The peach roots have a certain strangulation effect. Jade biting food. The peach sky azure bird will throw the jade-like peach fruit on the green peach tree at the target. The peach fruit will instantly apply an invincibility effect on the target. As long as the target's strength does not exceed the peach sky azure bird by a large level, this invincibility effect will not be nullified. Protection of the ocean. When faced with water element energy, the user has the ability to instantly calm the water element energy and return the damage to the target during a water element attack. Return of the elite guard. When devouring the soul of the elite guard with the desolation bloodline, it can awaken a drowned elite guard in the water region. After the elite guard reappears, it will constantly release the Flame Emperor's intent ability. Exclusive skill Frowny Face Heavenly Peach Branch. When the green peach tree is attacked, it will rapidly grow new branches, and each new branch will bloom a peach blossom. Before the newly grown peach branches bear peach fruits, the peach branch's defense will be doubled. Green Peach Gift. Each peach fruit will contribute the energy contained within and give it to the peach sky azure bird. At the same time, the peach sky azure bird can freely distribute this energy to each of the small peach sky azure bird's bodies. Body for Marshall. The peach sky azure bird will select a target and analyze the target's characteristics to find the target's weakness. It will then transform the target's weakness into a weapon to make up for the target's weakness and provide assistance to the target. At the same time, it will provide its own ability to the target. After checking, Lin Yuan was shocked by the power of Lu Yifun's Desolation Bloodline Peach Sky Azure Bird. On the other hand, he found a very interesting point. The Peach Sky Azure Bird was in the process of metamorphosis with Chimey. The Flowing Cloud Azure Bird's name was very similar. However, when Lin Yuan observed the phase species, he immediately found a difference. 7017K. Chapter 1732. When Chimey had evolved into the Flowing Cloud Azure Bird, it had belonged to the blue sparrow/feathered wing species. Therefore, Chimey was called the Flowing Cloud Azure Bird because its feathers were green. Morbius had chosen to use the color of its feathers to name fays that had never appeared in the world before. Lu Yifun's Peach Sky Azure Bird was a bluebird's main species/desolate fay. Normally, when fays were divided into classes, they would follow the main class. This meant that there was only one type of fay in this class. Therefore, it could be determined that the Peach Sky Azure Bird's fay was named according to its bloodline. And he had said that his senior brother's defense support could be picked up in one go. Lin Yuan did not need to look at Lu Yifun's other fays and sacred source lifeforms. Just this Peach Sky Azure Bird alone was enough for him to be certain. And his words were not false. The Peach Sky Azure Bird's normal ability, Falling Flowers, was a flexible and versatile defensive ability. Especially on a target, when there were 10 layers of petals, there would be a small Peach Sky Azure Bird guarding at the side. It was the most flexible and comprehensive defensive ability that Lin Yuan had seen among all the defensive abilities. The heartless and affectionate abilities looked rather complicated in the data introduction. However, in fact, it was an ability to heal the target's injuries and restore spiritual power. With these two abilities, Lu Yifun, a support-type Spirit Chi professional, could take on the responsibilities of a healing-type Spirit Chi professional. To a certain extent, he could take on the responsibilities of a healing-type Spirit Chi professional and a support-type Spirit Chi professional. Peach Demon Transformation was a type of group control. The Strangulation ability was targeted at relatively weaker fays. The Peach Roots could kill these weaker fays in a large area through the Strangulation ability. The Peach Sky Azure Bird's Peach Demon Transformation was able to suppress the insect swarm summoned by Lin Yuan's Red Thorn and Lu Jie's Insect Queen. The Platinum ability, Biting Jade Feeding, could be defined as a strategic defensive ability. It allowed the target to enter an invincible state, and it was not as simple as just blocking damage for the target. Some phase abilities and exclusive skills had certain special effects and curses. When these abilities landed on the target, they would cause a great impact on the target. The reason why Zhongzhe was cursed was because he didn't have such a defensive ability. If the Heavenly Peach Bird had been there to feed Zhongzhe with the Biting Jade skill, Zhongzhe could effectively resist the curse. For example, Peach Sky Bluebird's gold rank skill, Peach Demonization, had a strangling effect. It could also be used for defense. The Jade Locking Feeding skill mentioned that as long as the opponent's strength did not exceed the Heavenly Peach Bluebird by a large level, it would not be nullified. What was the concept of a big level? At this moment, the Heavenly Peach Bluebird's strength was at the peak of Suzerain level 10 Myth 2. If it was a grade higher, it would only be the attack of a Monarch Fae. Only then would he be able to escape from the effects of Jadeite feeding. When the Fae reached monarch grade, its strength would be at the creation breed level. In other words, the heavenly peach green bird could protect the target with its biting jade rock hurl skill. It could protect the target to the extent that it was invulnerable to anyone below the creator seed level. Previously, when Lu Yifan first appeared and ascended the 7-colored stone pillar, Lin Yuan saw Lu Yifan's other main Fae, the Yin-Yang dual bull. The Yin-Yang twin bull strength was also at the peak of Diamond X/Myth 2. The Freedom Federation and the Radiance Federation had always been the strongest opponents in the Myriad Nations Convention. Therefore, based on Lu Yifan's strength, Lin Yuan could roughly infer Chen Yu's strength. Chen Yu's Fae must also be at the peak of Suzerain/Myth 2. After examining Lu Yifan's Fae, Lin Yuan understood where his future goal was. Lu Yifan was still an A-rank Spirit Chi professional. Before a Spirit Chi professional could reach S rank, the strength of a Fae at the peak of Myth 2 was already the limit. Otherwise, as a Radiance envoy, Lu Yifan wanted to upgrade a Myth 2 Fae to Myth 3. He only needed a few law crystals. There was no reason not to upgrade it. As for the Heavenly Peach Bluebird's Diamond Street ability and Suzerain ability, in Lin Yuan's opinion, there should be a certain relationship. According to the introduction of the Suzerain ability, Elite Guard Return, Lin Yuan knew Lu Yifan's Peach Bluebird had devoured the soul of the Elite Guard, which was also a desolate bloodline Fae. The Heavenly Peach Bluebird was a Wood-type Fae, but it had a Water-type ability at Diamond. It did not conform to the evolution law of Faes. Therefore, the appearance of this ability should be related to the desolate bloodline Fae, the Elite Guard. However, Lin Yuan did not know what had happened and why the Heavenly Peach Bluebird had devoured the Elite Guard's soul. Lin Yuan did not know. The Diamond skill, Ocean Protection, was too focused. It wasn't all-encompassing. In Lin Yuan's opinion, the Heavenly Peach Bluebird was at a disadvantage. The Suzerain ability, Elite Guard Return, allowed the Heavenly Peach Bluebird to summon the Elite Guard. It was different from the Heavenly Peach Bluebird, which was a defense-type desolate bloodline Fae. The Elite Guard was a power offense-type desolate bloodline Fae and had extremely strong offensive power. This ability allowed the Heavenly Peach Bluebird to have a certain level of insight in its attacks. The summoned Elite Guard continuously used the Flame Emperor's Will skill. The Flame Emperor Mind's ability increased the strength of Fire-type Faes on one side and burned the enemy. It was very compatible with Zhong Zai's Burning Sky Roar. As for the exclusive skill, Peach Branch Sky, it fundamentally increased the Heavenly Peach Bluebird's defense. The Heavenly Peach Bluebird's defense mainly came from the peach blossoms that fell from the peach forest. Only when the peach blossoms were stacked 10 times would the small Heavenly Peach Bluebird be guarding by the side. The peach blossoms on the green peach trees were very easy to be attacked by the enemy. The exclusive skill, Peach Branch Sky, had the effect of doubling the defense before the peach blossoms bore fruit. It could guarantee that even if the enemy targeted the peach blossoms, it would be very difficult to destroy them. After all, peach trees bloomed first before bearing fruit. The exclusive skill, Green Peach Endowment, was a kind of endurance ability. It allowed the Heavenly Peach Bluebird of the Desolate Bloodline to protect multiple targets at the same time. It could also increase the strength of the defense while ensuring mobility. As for the exclusive skill, Body Transformation, no matter how one looked at it, it was very similar to the exclusive skill Specialization. But in essence, the exclusive skill, Body Transformation, was of a higher grade than Tool Transformation. Tool Transformation was a Fae that would randomly turn into an artifact for the Spirit Chi professional to use. Body Transformation could not only be used on other people. At the same time, it could also find the corresponding shortcomings based on other people's characteristics. It could turn into a weapon based on the shortcomings. It could make up for the shortcomings of the target. It was the same as customizing a weapon that would be of great help to the target. This was not the end. The Heavenly Peach Bluebird could also lend its spiritual power to the target. It was the same as turning into a powerful spiritual power battery in battle. Before Lin Yuan could continue marveling at Lu Yifan's Heavenly Peach Bluebird of the Desolate Peach Bluebird, Lu Yifan had already summoned his Sacred Source life form. 7017K. Chapter 1733. It was a tall lady covered in a black robe, revealing only half of her face. She appeared beside Lu Yifan. Lin Yuan was now 1.8 meters tall and was about to reach 1.8 meters. Lu Yifan was 1.82 meters tall, which was about the same height as Lin Yuan. Lu Jia was the tallest person present. He was 1.87 meters tall. However, compared to this lady who hid her entire body in the robe, Lu Jia could only be considered a dwarf. She was at least 4 meters tall, and her entire body was shrouded in a black robe. Her upper body was as thin as an electric pole. Her lower body was abnormally bloated. This made the lady's body look very strange under the black robe. Generally speaking, people wore black robes to keep a low profile. This lady's black robe was inlaid with gems, making her look exceptionally luxurious. At that moment, the lady reached out and pulled the black robe off her head. Her black hair hung just above the dividing line between her fat and skinny body. Lin Yuan heard the lady speak in a soft voice. "Master, Lulu wants to eat gems." Lu Yifan hurriedly took out dozens of gems and tossed them to the sacred source life form who called herself Lulu. Lulu happily caught the gems that Lu Yifan tossed over. Then he tugged at the black robe beneath him, revealing an extremely gorgeous throne. This throne was inlaid with 3 types of gems. They were emerald, topaz, and purple agate. These 3 types of gems were earth-type spiritual ingredients. They were produced in the origin world. They could only be used when concocting spirit liquids of grade 3 and above. Lin Yuan took a closer look at the chair and found that there were actually 3 mouths growing on it. The 3 mouths on the throne were extremely similar to the lady's. However, the 3 mouths on the throne were dozens of times larger than the lady's. Lulu was currently stuffing the gems into the 3 mouths. She filled the 3 mouths with emerald, topaz, and purple agate. The emerald, topaz, and purple agate entered the 3 mouths respectively. Then the 3 mouths emitted chewing sounds that made one's teeth ache. As the 3 mouths chewed, Lulu's face revealed a satisfied expression. Lin Yuan immediately knew that the humanoid sacred source life form was a foodie just like Princess. However, compared to the Princess Lulu, this little foodie was definitely more frugal. Princess usually consumed law crystals, world crystals, law origin crystals, and world origin crystals. Even the cheapest law origin crystal, which was easily obtainable, was much more expensive than emerald, topaz, and purple agate. Therefore, Lin Yuan had always felt that, no matter how edible the sacred source life form was, Princess would always be the benchmark in the world of gluttons. No one knew when the 3 mouths stopped chewing. The sacred source life form called Lulu spat out 3 small baskets from its 3 mouths. The 3 small baskets were filled with 3 types of specially processed gems. Lu Yifan threw a few dozen gems to Lulu and said, "My sacred source life form is called the Gem Witch. The current sacred source star is 7 stars, and the sacred source star is Earth. It's a defense-type sacred source life form." Lu Yifan then looked at Zhongzhe, Lujia, and Black. "My position in the team is a defense-type spirit chi professional, and I will coordinate with the support function. My offensive ability is not too strong. Therefore, when we fight later, the 3 of you will be the main attackers. I don't think I have time to show you my main phase, the yin-yang 2 directions ox and the 4 symbols 8 trigrams deer. These 2 phase abilities are defense and support at the same time. They can be used with my desolate bloodline Fei, the peach sky green bird. I will use them during the battle as I see fit." Lu Yifan's words could be said to be extremely candid. He analyzed his strengths and weaknesses. There were 10 minutes left before the end of the 30-minute battle meeting. During these 10 minutes, Lu Yifan said that he would not summon the yin-yang 2 directions ox and the 4 symbols 8 trigrams deer. This meant that Lu Yifan planned to use the rest of the time to introduce the sacred source life forms, the Gem Witch. Lin Yuan had Morbius true data, so he did not need Lu Yifan's introduction. He could accurately understand the Gem Witch's 3 functions as a 7-star sacred source life form. Sacred source name, Gem Witch, sacred source species, source family / sacred source species, sacred source star class, 7 stars, sacred source type, earth functions frowny face protection of the emerald. The witch takes out an emerald gemstone from the gemstone basket in her hand and throws it on the target. When the target is attacked, the damage will be turned into a shield under the effect of the emerald to protect the target. Topaz's guidance. The witch takes out an emerald gemstone from the gemstone basket and throws it on the target. When the target is attacked, the emerald gemstone will transform into a shield to protect the target. Purple agate reshaping. The witch takes out a purple agate stone from the gemstone basket in her hand and throws it on the target's body. When the target's body is injured, the purple agate stone will change its shape and temporarily replace the injured part of the target's body. The reshaped part will also have the same defensive strength as the purple agate stone. Lin Yuan rejoiced when he saw it. He knew Zhongzhe, Lujia, and Gaofeng very well. The 3 of them were all outstanding spirit chi professionals in their respective fields. Lujia was good at positional warfare and group combat. Zhongzhe specialized in single-target and group attacks. Gao Feng specialized in support. Lin Yuan had been developing in an all-round way, but compared to offense, healing, and support, Lin Yuan was much stronger. Defense had always been his weakest aspect. Lin Yuan's defense mainly relied on the princess immunity to elemental energy. Genius buffered and reflected mental attacks, while the Source Sand's highly effective Guardian Sand blocked physical attacks. These three abilities had forged Lin Yuan into an iron bucket. However, if Lin Yuan wanted to help his teammates defend, he could only use the Source Sand. When facing the alien beast Tide, the Source Sand was like a god that could protect any teammate that Lin Yuan wanted to protect. However, in the battle that was about to take place, the Source Sand would not be able to unleash such powerful abilities. Due to Han Chi's Fei, the floating earth serpent, the Source Sand was firmly suppressed. He could only rely on the Samurai Guard to fight. Moreover, every time the floating world Bright Serpent used its skill, Earth Reset, it would activate the skill. The Source Sand would be scattered. It took about half a minute for them to gather together. Therefore, he had been worried that his side would have enough offense but not enough defense. 7017K. Chapter 1734. However, the addition of Lu Yifan, the third Radiance Envoy, made up for this. He gave the team the most advantageous protection. Lin Yuan's confidence in Lu Yifan wasn't just because of Lu Yifan's title as the third Radiance Envoy. It wasn't just because of Lu Yifan's desolate bloodline Fei, the Peach Sky Azure Bird. It was because of Lu Yifan's sacred source lifeform, the Gem Witch. As a Class 7 sacred source lifeform, the Gem Witch had three functions. The first function, Emerald's protection, allowed the Gem Witch to exert an unimaginable defensive effect on her own unit. The sacred source lifeform's ability could be said to be equivalent to the truth. According to Morbius' introduction of the Gem Witch's ability, Emerald's protection. When facing any attack, the Gem Witch's emeralds could absorb the target's damage in the process of defending against the attack. It formed a shield to protect the target. The emerald's ability to absorb attack power was definitely limited. It would continue to strengthen as the Gem Witch's star rank increased. However, when they collided with the Freedom Federation's envoys, only Qianyu, who was also a Freedom Envoy, could match Lu Yifan's target. In other words, as long as the Gem Witch threw the emeralds it could absolutely block the target's attack. As for the second ability, Topaz's Guidance, it had an ability that was impossible to appear among Fey abilities and exclusive skills. This ability allowed him to accurately judge the target. It could determine if the target was in an unreal state. Unreal states could be divided into many situations. For example, bewitchment and illusion techniques could cause people to enter an unreal state. As for the Gem Witch's second ability, Topaz's Guidance, it could make the target who was charmed or under illusion make the best choice even in an unreal state. This ability was very useful in a team. It could effectively prevent a situation of 4 against 6. In Lin Yuan's opinion, the Purple Agate's reconstruction was an extremely heroic ability. For example, during the Radiance 100 sequence selection process. When facing the alien insects, some candidates' hands or legs were blown off and could not move. If the Gem Witch threw a purple agate at such a candidate, this purple agate would fuse into the target's flesh and blood. A new body made of purple agate would fill the target's incomplete body. Let the target continue to fight in a complete state. Furthermore, the body that was strengthened by the purple agate would have a stronger defense than the original body. This skill could be considered a godly skill in a battle of life and death. However, it had no effect on battles on the Star Web. After all, there was no fear of death in a battle on Star Web, let alone injuries. However, in the upcoming battle, the Gem Witch's ability to reshape purple agate was bound to play an excellent role. Lin Yuan's Jasmine Lily had the exclusive skill, Severed Growth. Even if the target's body was damaged, it could still connect to the target's genetic model and allow the target's body to regrow. The Jasmine Lily's exclusive skill, Severance, was much better than the Gem Witch's purple agate's reshaping. After all, the purple agate's remolding ability lay in replenishment. After the battle, this supplement would disappear. The Jasmine Lily's exclusive skill, Discontinuity, was to use vitality to reconstruct. However, compared to the Gem Witch's ability to reshape purple agate, if the Jasmine Lily wanted to recover a Fey, it would need to consume a lot of vitality energy. It was undoubtedly very easy for the Gem Witch to use the purple crystal to reconstruct a Fey's body. It could be said that through the Freedom Federation's choice, the The 5 people who were about to go up on his side formed a perfect combination. Zhongzhe and Lu Jie, as power offense-type spirit chi professionals, were in charge of offense. Lu Yifan, as a defense-type spirit chi professional, was in charge of defense. Gao Feng, as a support-type spirit chi professional, was in charge of support. Lin Yuan planned to resume his old profession and set himself up as a healing-type spirit chi professional. In fact, when Lin Yuan had registered his identity as Black, he had just contracted the Jasmine Lily. Chimey and Genius were not suitable for combat. At that time, Lin Yuan was essentially a healing-type spirit chi professional. However, Lin Yuan's combat ability was now much higher than his healing ability. However, the Jasmine Lily's ability was still there. It could only rely on its normal ability, heal, and exclusive skill, Severance. It was stronger than most healing-type phase. Moreover, Lin Yuan's sacred sword also contained the healing-type sword skill he had obtained from the holy healing White Deer World's crystal. While he was using Morbius True Data to investigate the Gem Witch's ability, Morbius True Data Lu Yifan had already introduced the Gem Witch's ability to Lu Jie, Zhongzhe, and Gao Feng in detail. After understanding Lu Yifan's Desolation Bloodline Fei, the Peach Sky Green Bird, and the Gem Witch's abilities, the 3 of them pondered. At that moment, Lu Yifan spoke. Black, Zhongzhe, Lu Jie, the 3 of you will be the main attackers in the team. Do you have any ideas for the battle later? Under normal circumstances, Lu Yifan would be the Radiance envoy. After taking over the team, he could use his identity to command the team. However, Lu Yifan did not do so. Instead, he asked Lin Yuan, Zhongzhe, and Lu Jie for their opinions. This was because Lu Yifan did not understand Black, Zhongzhe, and Lu Jie's phase. Secondly, in a battle, especially a life-and-death battle like this between 2 sides, they had to ensure that the team had enough offensive power. Otherwise, they would not be able to win if they just defended. Therefore, in a 5-member team, the power offense-type spirit chi professional would be the one to command the team. It would be more convenient for them to attack. As the leader, Lu Yifan had completely delegated his authority without hesitation. From this short half an hour of contact, Lin Yuan understood what kind of person Lu Yifan was. Since Lu Yifan had asked this, it meant that he wanted to know their opinions. Lin Yuan replied, Lu Jie and I are both good at positional warfare. My source sand and Lu Jie's insect swarm work together. The sea of flowers that we summon can also restrict the opponent to a certain extent. We can also expand the land we control. Therefore, I suggest that we wait until we teleport to the duel area and not move. Spread out the formation on the spot. Lu Jie's black wind owlet moths and my source sand can be in the sky and on the ground. They can effectively explore the surrounding environment. For the insect swarm, positional warfare only required them to be the center. They did not need to care about which direction the enemy would come from. The insect swarm's mobility was not to be trifled with. Chapter 1735. Even if the fortifications were deployed in the wrong direction from the start, the swarm only needed to move, and within a few seconds, they would be able to set up fortifications in another direction. Hearing Lin Yuan's words, Gao Feng's eyes lit up and said, When my phase, Breeze Hibiscus and Spirit Spring Lily, are in a specific area, the Breeze Hibiscus will use the airflow to help the Spirit Spring Lily recover spirit power. It can increase the speed at which the Spirit Spring Lily gathers spiritual energy. I can do my best to help Lu Jie and Black recover their spirit energy. It will make it easier for the 2 of them to spread out their formation. Lin Yuan shook his head upon hearing that. He then said to Gao Feng, My spiritual power should be enough for the battle later. You don't have to worry about me. Just do your best to supply the spiritual energy to Lu Jie, Zhongzhe, and Lu Yifan. Lin Yuan had already planned to open his spirit chi imprint and life imprint in this battle. Through the battle with Han Qi, Lin Yuan knew that the Freedom Federation had come prepared. Yan Ling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian were watching the General Execution battle from below the General Execution platform. The 3 of them were obviously afraid of the white-haired youth behind them. The other members of the Liberal 100 sequence were also very far away from this white-haired youth. This meant that this white-haired youth definitely had an extraordinary identity. He was definitely a hidden ace of the Freedom Federation. Therefore, in such a battle between the 2 great federations that was of great significance, there was no need to worry. Lin Yuan was ready to play his trump card according to the situation on the battlefield. Of course, Di Wanmi and the Emperor-class weapons that Red Thorn controlled through the tongue of Relinquish. Furthermore, Lin Yuan and Bai Lan had fused together to obtain Bai Yen and other trump cards. He would definitely not expose himself. These trump cards were too important. Not only would people discover Red Thorn's abnormality, but they might also discover his uniqueness. It would be fine if these trump cards were exposed in front of the Radiance Federation's lord. However, the Freedom Federation's people were also here. Lin Yuan couldn't possibly reveal his trump cards. The mutation of the Red Thorn's tongue of relinquish was due to devouring that strange plant's seed and plant. Through the investigation of the whale ocean trade, Lin Yuan knew that everything was related to the Tower Cannon. It was said that 2 members of the 8 pages had come to Radiance. If he was detected by the people in the Tower Cannon, it would be equivalent to putting himself in danger. Furthermore, he had summoned an Emperor-grade weapon and an expert like Bai Yan. If that happened, then this competition would be meaningless. The 2 majesties of the Freedom Federation would definitely take action to stop the competition. It was only when he displayed the combat strength that was normal for his age. Only then was he able to kill the 5 young powerhouses of the Freedom Federation's diplomatic mission. This left the 2 leaders of the Freedom Federation speechless. Lin Yuan's words stunned Lu Yifan, Zhongzhe, Lu Jie and Gao Feng. He immediately knew that Lin Yuan definitely had a trump card that could help him recover his spiritual power. During the battle with Zhongzhe in the civil and martial arena, Zhongzhe had discovered Lin Yuan's astonishing spirit chi reserves. At that time, Zhongzhe could vaguely sense that Lin Yuan was just a B-rank spirit chi professional. However, Zhongzhe had used up all the spiritual power in his body, but Lin Yuan seemed to be fine. There was still a large amount of spiritual energy that could be used. Lu Jie planned to display the fruits of his labor over the past 6 months in this battle. Lu Jie said to Gao Feng, "Gao Feng, in terms of spiritual power, after we enter the arena, you will give me priority. The insect-type carcinoma Fey that I possess requires a certain amount of spiritual power to produce. During the battle, I will use many types of insect-type carcinoma Feys." Gao Feng and Zhongzhe had seen it before. During the Dark Night Assembly, Lu Jie had used the insect-type carcinoma Feys to battle. In order for the insect-type carcinoma Feys to fully display their strength, they would need a large platform. It could be said that in the civil and martial arena, Lu Jie's usage of the insect-type carcinoma phase was restricted. Even so, Lu Jie still defeated all of his opponents in the martial arena. Lu Yifan could already see it. Black, who was wearing a silver mask, was obviously very familiar with Zhongzhe, Lu Jie and Gao Feng. Furthermore, she was the one who could make the decision. Lu Yifan said to Black, "During the battle later, why don't you be the commander? During the battle, why don't you be the commander? I will provide the most thorough protection for all of you during the battle. You can trust me on this. Although I am not familiar with your phase and sacred source life forms, I will quickly familiarize myself with them during the battle." Lin Yuan did not stand on ceremony when he heard Lu Yifan's words. He immediately took over the responsibility of being the commander. "Big brother Lu Yifan, I will not be commanding you during the battle. We'll do as you say. You just need to protect us." While the Radiance Federation was deciding who would be the commander and how they would conduct the battle, all of the spectators on Star Web, including the Radiance 100 sequence members and the 13 Highnesses, had solemn expressions. In just one more minute, the half-hour battle conference would be over. At that time, the Radiance Federation and Freedom Federation's 10 members would form teams. At that time, the Radiance Federation and the Freedom Federation's 10 members would form teams. They would be teleported to either side of the dual ground. The battle would officially begin. When the battle started, none of the spectators felt that it could be broadcasted on Star Web. However, the 13 Highnesses had decided to do so. The Class 6 Abyss Dimensional Rift had opened and the 2-year agreement between the Radiance Federation and the Freedom Federation. This allowed many Spirit Chi professionals and ordinary people to understand something. Many Spirit Chi professionals who did not want to go to the Abyss world to develop and train had all signed up. They were prepared to temper themselves in blood and fire. In this turbulent great world, it was for self-protection and to protect the radiance in their hearts. All of a sudden, in the Freedom Federation and the Radiance Federation's combat conference rooms on both sides of the dual ground, the shell fragment that had marked the location in advance suddenly split open a spatial door. After this spatial door split open, the 2 groups of people walked into the portal at the first moment. This was because both sides knew. The first to arrive at the dual ground would be able to gain the upper hand to some extent no matter what combat method was used. The area of the dual ground was 10 square kilometers. This area was already extremely wide for a 5-on-5 duel between 2 teams. Within this 10 square kilometers, there were over a dozen types of terrains, condensed into 6 types of climates. Each terrain and climate had a certain degree of help for specific phase. This caused each climate and environment to have a certain impact on the battle situation. Lin Yuan, Lu Yifan, Zhongzhe, Lu Jie and Gao Feng. They were teleported to a hilly area. The hilly area was considered the worst terrain among the dozen types of terrains. 7017 K. Chapter 1736. Firstly, the hills would block the line of sight. Secondly, if a huge land fey was summoned in the hilly area, these land feys would be restricted in the hilly area. But all of this was not a bad thing for Lin Yuan. After the hard rocks of the hills were ground by the source sand, they would be more powerful. Lin Yuan's hand shook, and the amber button-shaped source sand fell on the hard rock under his feet. Lin Yuan's hand shook, and the amber button-shaped source sand landed on the hard stone under his feet. Lin Yuan raised his hand and used little black spirit injection on himself and Lu Jie. Lin Yuan raised his hand and cast spirit injection on himself and Lu Jie. The source sand quickly ground the surrounding rocks and frantically created sand. In less than a minute, it turned an area of 2,000 square meters. In less than a minute, it had covered an area of 2,000 square meters. Lin Yuan had cooperated with Lu Jie before. In a sense, the yellow sand was the best shelter for the insect swarm. In a sense, the yellow sand was the best cover for the swarm. In a sense, the yellow sand was the best shelter for the insect swarm. Under the guidance of the breeze hibiscus, the surrounding spiritual power quickly gathered toward the spirit spring lily. Each of the spirit spring lily's blooming flowers spat out a stream of spirit spring water. Dozens of spirit spring water flowed into Lu Jie's body. In an instant, Lu Jie felt the surging spiritual power contained in these spirit springs. Lu Jie stretched out his hand and snapped his fingers. The dimensional light moth immediately appeared above Lu Jie's head. Then the dimensional light moth flew low and used the 2 stone hills that Lin Yuan had deliberately left as cover. A large number of flesh-mincing blade insects, lightning-gathering moths, plasma caterpillars, and hurricane owlet moths were produced. Those hurricane owlet moths were all simplified versions. The huge wings rode the wind and had a speed not inferior to the bronze divine travel black swallow. These hurricane owlet moths scattered like snowflakes. It was to find the location of the Freedom Federation's envoy members in the air. In a very short time, as Lu Jie's spiritual power was constantly consumed, Gao Feng even had to let the spirit spring lily begin to restore his spiritual power. It could be said that Gao Feng had almost given more than half of the spiritual power in his body to Lu Jie in an instant. This allowed Lu Jie's insect queen to maximize the insect swarm. The dimensional light moth seemed to have diarrhea and queued for nearly 8 minutes. Gao Feng, Zhongzhe and Lu Yifan knew that Lu Jie had produced a lot of alien insects. But he couldn't be sure how many alien insects were produced. However, both of them were very clear about the alien insects' numbers. The source sand dug one tunnel after another in the sand beneath its feet. These tunnels were basically filled with flesh-mincing blade insects. At the same time, the source sand dug out 2 spaces of 600 square meters underground. In this space, 2 groups of plasma caterpillars and lightning-gathering moths were continuously condensing powerful plasma cannons. Lin Yuan saw that Gao Feng's spirit chi was somewhat insufficient. He raised his hand and cast a spirit injection on Gao Feng. After all, Blackie's strength was at Diamond X/Fantasy V. Gao Feng's consumed spiritual power quickly recovered under Little Black spiritual injection. On Lu Yifan's side, he did not summon his main phase, the Yin-Yang bull and the 4 symbols 8 trigrams deer. He only summoned the desolate bloodline fey, the sky peach blue bird. One green peach tree after another grew out of the sea of sand. These peach trees had just appeared, so they were still in a bare state. However, they soon branched and grew new leaves. The new leaves went from tender to lush, and finally, green peach blossoms bloomed among the leaves. Lu Yifan did not choose to let these peach blossoms bear fruit. Instead, he chose to let these peach blossoms fall one after another. They fell on himself, Gao Feng, Black, Zhongzhe, Lu Jie, and the currently summoned fey, the dimensional light moth. As the peach blossom petals overlapped, a green peach blossom mark appeared on everyone's body. Then they put on a battle dress with peach trees and blue birds. Finally, a small sky peach blue bird hovered around everyone's body. After the small sky peach blue bird appeared on everyone's body, Lu Yifan commanded the sky peach blue bird so that these green peach trees no longer fell flowers. Instead, he let the peach blossoms breed peach fruits in preparation for the battle later. Lu Jie saw that the insect swarm produced by the insect queen was almost enough. With a wave of his hand, he summoned an extremely disgusting strange alien insect that looked like a black headless earthworm. However, compared to an earthworm, this alien insect's body could extend much longer. This insect species Carcinoma Fey would leave a deep impression on anyone who participated in the Great Night Assembly. This was because this insect species Carcinoma Fey was the mycelium tapeworm that Wuxia had summoned during the martial duel. As an insect species Carcinoma Fey, the mycelium tapeworm had an extremely strong adaptability to the environment. Although the sand was dry, it did not stop the mycelium tapeworm from covering its fungal carpet on the yellow sand. It was rumored that the insect species Carcinoma Fey, the mycelium tapeworm, had the ability to spread its fungal carpet in the magma. Wuxia's mycelium tapeworm had reached diamond/legend. On the purplish-black fungal carpet that was spread, the mycelium tapeworm was rapidly dividing. Soon, the fungal carpet was covered with black mycelium tapeworms. Under Lin Yuan's command, these mycelium tapeworms were buried by the source sand. They were buried 1 meter underground. Under the ground, the mycelium tapeworm's fungal carpet was still constantly expanding. These buried mycelium tapeworms could be said to be the insect swarm's second life. When the insect swarm died in the battle, the mycelium tapeworms would parasitize the dead insects. They would control the dead insects' bodies. Then they would enter a new round of battle. This was not the end. Wuxia now controlled over 10 insect species Carcinoma Feys. How could he only summon one during the battle? After fusing with the source-type cocoon demon embryo, the Blade Queen Bee had become a 4-winged demon. It was at an evolutionary juncture. As long as the Blade Queen Bee could comprehend the willpower rune from heaven and earth, it would be able to become a myth breed. The Blade Queen Bee was an insect species Carcinoma Fey that was controlled by the Insect Queen. It was not restricted by Wuxia's Spirit Chi professional rank. The dimensional light moth opened its abdomen and fired like a machine gun. It spat out a total of 80 black caterpillars with spikes all over their bodies. Under Wuxia's command, the Insect Queen produced another 80 hidden armor ladybugs that contained the most abundant insect protein. As soon as these 80 hidden armor ladybugs were born, they knew their mission. It was to provide food for the Blade Queen Bee's larvae. The hidden armor ladybugs lay in the yellow sand and opened up their carapaces, revealing the soft abdomen beneath their wings. It was convenient for these blade worms to parasitize. They would then rely on the hidden armor ladybug's nutrients to grow into their adult state. The Blade Queen Bee's larvae had already burrowed into the hidden armor ladybug's soft abdomen and were feasting. However, the 80 hidden armor ladybugs that were still alive did not let out a single sound. Wuxia continued to summon an insect species Carcinoma Fey that Lin Yuan had never seen before. 7017K. Chapter 1737. The Star Web viewers were deeply shocked by Wuxia's combat strength. Or rather, they were deeply shocked by the insect swarm's discipline. In fact, many of the Star Web viewers were very puzzled. How did Wuxia return to the Radiance 100 sequence this year and ascend to the first position of the 100 sequence? Could it be because he had become Lord Nightguard's disciple? Now, all the viewers understood how terrifying Wuxia's strength was. None of the insects that the dimensional light moths had spat out were lower than diamond. In the eyes of many Spirit Chi professionals who had ventured into the alien insect dimensional rifts, these insects were terrifying. Its degree of terror was already not inferior to a Class 4 alien insect dimensional rift. Even the alien insects in Class 4 alien insect dimensional rifts did not have such high quality. Wuxia had used his strength to control the insect swarm. He had allowed the insects to cooperate and obey orders, giving rise to a magnificent feeling of greatness. Wuxia lived up to his name and was the true heart of the insect swarm. The new insect species Tumor Fey that Wuxia had summoned was a yellowish-brown locust that looked very unremarkable. This locust was only the size of half of Wuxia's palm. Its abdomen was bulging and it was almost like a ball. This unremarkable locust might not be the poison dust flying locust, but it instantly evoked a terrifying memory of Golden Edge City's residents. Back then, the insect species Tumor Fey, sawtooth devour ants, had wreaked havoc outside Golden Edge City and nearly caused the residents to starve to death. The sawtooth devour ants could swallow everything in sight into their abdomens. Every time they were full, they would enter the incubation state and produce new sawtooth devour ants. After a few hours, the newly born sawtooth devourer ants would hatch from their eggs. After hatching, they would only need one meal to enter the adult state. Back then, it was another insect species Tumor Fey, the poison dust flying locust, that had saved Golden Edge City. However, the poison dust flying locust was not the main contributor. Wherever the poison dust flying locust passed, there would be poisonous smoke everywhere. After being contaminated by the poisonous smoke, Golden Edge City might have been treated with spirit fluids by creation masters and could now be used to grow some cash crops. However, the production of cash crops was surprisingly low and could not even make up for the cost. This disaster caused Gold Edge City to go from being a big city with abundant resources to being able to export large amounts of cash crops every year. It became the largest city among all the cities that imported the most food and spiritual materials. It overturned the original economic structure of Gold Edge City. This caused Gold Edge City to fall from the 7th place to the 28th place. Lin Yuan used Morbius True data to check the locusts in Lu Jie's hands. With a glance, he discovered that this new insect-type carcinoma Fey was called the parasitic rot-flying locust. After understanding the parasitic rot-flying locust's exclusive skill, Lin Yuan could not help but click his tongue. The poison dust-flying locust was also an insect-type tumor Fey, but in terms of toxin, it was stronger than the parasitic rot-flying locust. However, the parasitic rot-flying locust was definitely ranked first in terms of its ability to destroy the ecosystem. Lin Yuan knew why Lu Jie had summoned the rot-flying locust. Lu Jie had summoned the parasitic rot-flying locust to destroy the surrounding environment. Since they were going to engage in positional warfare, they naturally had no requirements for the environment. If the enemy wanted to fight them, they would have to attack them from the surroundings. Thus, the enemy could rely on the environment around their position. Lu Jie's thinking was very simple. Since he couldn't use it on his side, then the other party shouldn't think about using it either. Lu Jie shouted, "Parasitic rotting locusts, fill the entire dueling ground with your descendants. Parasitize all the living plants in the dueling ground." He drank all the water. Chew through all the rocks. Following Lu Jie's command, the Diamond X/legendary rot-flying locust flew into the air. This parasitic rot-flying locust was a queen locust, so its stomach was ridiculously big. Therefore it flew very slowly. The parasitic rot-flying locust slowly flew to the edge of the yellow sand. Suddenly he plunged into a huge ancient tree and drilled into the trunk. In less than 10 seconds the ancient tree began to shake rapidly. Then the tree trunk was corroded with holes. A green sandstorm seemed to be spewing out from the inside of the tree, dispersing in all directions. Lin Yuan, Lu Yifan, Zhong Zhe and Gao Feng could all see it clearly. These things that looked like a sandstorm were all locust larvae. They watched as the locusts landed on the trees beside them. They corroded these trees. After these parasitic rot-flying locusts rusted the tree trunk, they would not completely devour it. Instead they would use the tree trunk as their nest. After occupying the tree trunk, a parasitic rot-flying locust larva would rapidly develop into a queen locust. Then, with the tree trunk as a base, they would once again produce a large number of larvae. At the same time, the green larvae that flew out would grow into adults. They would often return with large pieces of wood or grass to feed the queen locust. This would replenish the nutrients for the queen locust so that it could produce more larvae. In just 2 minutes, the entire 100,000 square kilometer area was barren. There was not a single blade of grass growing within 10,000 kilometers. Rocks were gnawed to pieces and rivers were drained. However, all the larger trees had queen locust living in them. Because these queen locusts were too far away, they could not receive any supplies. They emitted intense insect cries and constantly urged the parasitic rot-flying locust larvae to grow. This caused the parasitic rot-flying locust larvae to enter a berserk state and become extremely aggressive. These parasitic rot-flying locust larvae surrounded the yellow sand like a no-man's land. At this moment, 80 stern roars rang out. The 80 hidden armor ladybugs that had opened their wings and exposed their soft abdomens had finally used the energy within their bodies to raise the blade worms. The blade worms had already grown into adults and burrowed out of the hidden armor ladybugs' bodies. A total of 80 worms that were nearly 8 meters long and covered in blade-like spikes appeared beside Lu Jie. These blade worms had been specially nurtured by the Blade Queen Bee. Lu Jie had also fed them with 80 Fantasy 3 hidden armor ladybugs. These blade worms had basically reached Diamond X Fantasy thrice. Only a few of them were underdeveloped and were at Diamond X/Fantasy 2. These blade worms were all the Blade Queen Bee's strongest weapons. Together with the blade worms that had grown to a certain size, they could use their strong bodies to charge at the enemy after death. When Lu Jie was fighting Long Tao, he had summoned 2 insect-type carcinoma Fays. These 2 insect-type carcinoma Fays were the Devil Flower Shield Bug and the Floating Hat Bug. Since the parasitic rot-flying locust had drunk all the water, Lu Jie had no need to summon them. Thus, there was no need for Lu Jie to summon the Devil Flower Shield Bug, which relied on water to fight. However, Lu Jie still summoned the Devil Flower Shield Bug. As the only pure support in the team, Gao Feng had set his own requirements. Before the other four fell, Gao Feng could not be attacked. 7017K. Chapter 1738. Thus, Gao Feng didn't need any special protection. Lu Jie let the Demon Flower Gas Shield Bug climb onto Lin Yuan's body. It would protect Lin Yuan. Then Lu Jie snapped his fingers twice. The Dead Soul Caterpillar was summoned by Lu Jie. At the same time, the Dead Soul Caterpillar was still residing in the Orchid Petal Blade Centipede's body and burrowed into the sand like a ghost. Firstly, the Dead Soul Caterpillar could control the Orchid Petal Blade Centipede to attack its target like an assassin. Secondly, after the Orchid Petal Blade Centipede's body was destroyed, the Dead Soul Caterpillar could find an opportunity to parasitize and control other life forms. Just as the Dead Soul Caterpillar appeared, another flat, crawling insect-type tumor fey that would leave black marks on the ground was summoned. Once this insect-type tumor fey appeared, Lu Jie let the two hurricane owlet moths bring it to the edge of the sea of sand. Lin Yuan made use of this opportunity to use Morbius True data to investigate the insect species Carcinoma fey. With a glance, Lin Yuan realized that this insect-type tumor fey was called the Rotten Earth Ruin Bug. It could turn land into wasteland, and wasteland had a powerful amplification effect on other insect-type tumor feys. The Rotten Earth Ruin Bug's corrosion was spreading at a visible speed at the edge of the sea of sand. When the parasitic rot-flying locust queen roared, all the parasitic rot-flying locust entered a berserk state. However, when the berserk adult parasitic rot-flying locust consumed the wasteland soil, the parasitic rot-flying locust would not disappear. Although the berserk state did not disappear, after being fed to the insect queen could quickly produce another batch of larvae. It would expand the parasitic rot-flying locust army from the inside out. Lin Yuan had heard of the insect-type tumor fey, the Rotten Earth Ruin Bug. The appearance of the Rotten Earth Ruin Bug would turn land into wasteland. It was very easy to distinguish. Furthermore, the Rotten Earth Ruin Bug would not reproduce and would only have one adult. However, the Rotten Earth Ruin Bug was ranked very high among the insect-type tumor feys. This was because once the Rotten Earth Ruin Bug came into contact with other insect-type tumor feys, the insect-type tumor feys that the Rotten Earth Ruin Bug nurtured would erupt into an uncontrollable natural disaster in a short period of time. Lu Jie summoned 7 insect-type tumor feys in a row. In an instant, it evolved into a small-scale natural disaster. Apart from Night Leaning Moon, the Star Web's audience, the Radiance 100 sequence members, and the 12 Radiance Federation's eminences were stunned. Lian Shen and Li Yang were also stunned. Goddess Lian and Li Yang only had one thought in their minds, and that was, what was the Radiance Federation doing? Was he breeding a monster? What method did this person use to control so many insect-type carcinoma feys at once? It would have been fine if they were just bronze and gold insect species feys, but their strength had actually reached Diamond X/Legend. Fortunately, the competition venue was only 10 square kilometers. If the area of the examination was more than 100 square kilometers, he would give Night Leaning Moon's disciple some more time to develop. In that case, they might as well not fight the team battle. Even if Luo fused with that great devil, the calamity formed by these alien insects would not be able to withstand it. Don't even think about breaking through to the central region. It could be said that this young man named Lu Jie was an invincible existence on a large-scale battlefield. Zhongzhe had met Lu Jie during the sparring portion of the competition. He had only used 3 carcinoma feys at once. Now that he saw Lu Jie using 7 at once, he could not help but gulp down his saliva. Lu Jie, don't tell me that you still have insect-type carcinoma feys. Lu Jie replied in a very honest manner. When I introduced my strength previously, I only mentioned my insect queen. I forgot to tell you that I have a total of 17 insect-type carcinoma feys. Apart from one that is not on me, the other 3 are suitable for underwater battles. I have 13 that I can use, and there are still 6 that I have yet to summon. It is because I feel that controlling 7 carcinoma feys at once is already my limit. In my opinion, these 7 are the best way to use them. Zhongzhe originally had an idea. He wanted to challenge Lu Jie to a duel. This idea had appeared in Zhongzhe's mind after the Dark Night meeting had ended. However, Zhongzhe had given up on this idea. On a 300 square meter platform, he could easily defeat Lu Jie. However, if it was a large arena, he would easily be exhausted to death by Wuxia. Therefore there was no meaning in a duel with Wuxia. Zhongzhe's strength was in his control of the arena and the environment, as well as his unparalleled offensive ability. But Wuxia's move made Zhongzhe feel that Wuxia was already qualified to be the current Radiance envoy. However, Zhongzhe did not know. Wuxia had already agreed with Night Leaning Moon to give up on competing for the position of the Radiance envoy. Instead, he would become a member of the Radiance Knights after he became a Radiance envoy. While Wuxia was setting up the battlefield, Lin Yuan was not idling around. He did not release Red Thorn, but he released the 40 spore cavities that Red Thorn had specially nurtured. These spore cavities sprayed spores, and Red Thorn was not stingy with its eye of relinquish. On the bare ground that had been gnawed by the rot-flying locusts, suddenly batch after batch of gluttonous vines grew. These gluttonous vines were supplied with energy by the eye of relinquish. Even without a large number of corpses, they were still growing vigorously. In just 2 seconds they had grown from 10 centimeters to 1 meter. In less than 40 seconds, each gluttonous vine had grown to more than 10 meters. These gluttonous vines continued to expand outwards. Following Wuxia's order, the adult rot-flying locust began to move. They did not attack the gluttonous vines. Instead, they flew toward the gluttonous vines. With the gluttonous vines as cover, the sea of flowers and the sea of insects coexisted perfectly. The Radiance Federation had already set up their formation. However, the Freedom Federation's 5 members had a disagreement after entering the test venue. This disagreement was mainly between Yan Ling and Yu Changjian. Once Yan Ling entered the test venue, she requested Kai Hua and Yu Changjian to summon their sacred source lifeforms. The trio's sacred source lifeforms were linked. In the end, Yu Changjian rejected Yan Ling's suggestion. He indicated that he would only use it when he saw the enemy. This way he could conserve spiritual power. Before the few of them could argue or even discuss which method they would use to fight against the Radiance Federation's 5 people, the Radiance Federation's people had already arrived. Suddenly, they heard a large buzzing sound coming from the forest beside them. It was as if a large number of things were flying toward them. Seeing this scene, Luo's face revealed a smile. She said softly, "Just nice, I'm hungry. Finally there's food." As she spoke, 4 black horns suddenly emerged from Luo's short white hair. 7017K. Chapter 1739. 2 of these 4 black horns extended upward, while the other 2 extended to the left and right. The 2 horns, one on the left and one on the right, had circular patterns on them. The 2 horns on the top of his head were abnormally smooth. As soon as the 4 horns appeared, a depraved, evil, and strange aura suddenly erupted with Luo as the center. The edge of Luo's short hair was dyed dark red. Luo's eyes had turned black and his pupils, which were dark gold and red, revealed a touch of ridicule. It was completely different from the feeling that Luo gave off before. Previously, Luo had looked like a cute white-haired Shota. But now Luo was like a ferocious and bloodthirsty tyrant. It was as if everything in the world was treated as food that could be eaten. Yan Ling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian all looked at Luo with fear. Especially Yan Ling and Yu Changjian. This was because Yan Ling and Yu Changjian had each contracted a demon. Yan Ling had contracted a middle-rank demon, while Yu Changjian had contracted a low-rank demon. Yu Changjian, who had contracted a low-rank demon, had not fallen to the ground, which was already a sign of strong willpower. After contracting a demon, the soul would fuse with the demon. Therefore Yu Changjian, who had contracted a low-rank demon, had a sense of fear from the bottom of his heart toward the aura of a high-rank demon. Chen Yu did not expect Luo to make the first move. But now he was already in the test venue. In the forest not far away, the sounds of a large number of insect species phase could be heard. There should not be any living beings in the duel ground. The appearance of living beings here meant that the enemy had released them. Chen Yu was not sure if these large number of insect species phase were sent by the other party to be the vanguard. Or was it a killing move from the start? Therefore Chen Yu waved his hand, and a huge strange fish that was about 6 meters long appeared behind him. This strange fish's body was covered with a thick layer of shield skin. The huge cuticle that formed the fish's mouth opened, and a stench suddenly burst out. After the small strange fish appeared, the sound of its heartbeat was like a drum, causing the earth to tremble. If Lin Yuan saw this strange fish, he would definitely know. This strange fish had basically reached the limit of a fish phase atavism. This fish fae had the bloodline of a fish phase ancestor from hundreds of millions of years ago. It had an extremely strong suppression on other fish phase. Qianyu yelled. Descending Cambrian. Hearing Qianyu's command, the green-skinned fish's skin suddenly turned purplish-red. A chaotic wave of water elemental energy swept out in all directions with this strange fish as the center. It was as if a sea from hundreds of millions of years ago was about to open up beneath their feet. At this moment, Qianyu met Luo's gaze. Luo's eyes, which were a mixture of scarlet and dark gold, clearly showed his dissatisfaction towards him. He even felt an unconcealable malice towards himself. Qianyu immediately thought of Luo's greater devil's uniqueness. He quickly stopped his fei and executed his exclusive skill, Cambrian Descent. If the descent of Cambrian was activated, it would instantly crush those insects. This was equivalent to ruining Luo's meal. I heard that apart from Her Highness Nana, no one could use any method to stop Luo from eating. Otherwise he would be seen as an enemy by Luo. At this time, the swarm of rot-flying locusts had already flown over. Looking at the disgusting adult parasitic rot-flying locust, Luo's appetite did not diminish at all. Luo fiercely let out a breath, and his abdomen instantly caved in. Immediately after, Luo opened his mouth and suddenly inhaled. A black-red wind instantly appeared in front of Luo. Within this wind there were many black-red claws. It was as if he was afraid that the parasitic rot-flying locusts would escape. He firmly controlled these parasitic rot-flying locusts within this black-red wind. As an insect-type carcinoma fei, the parasitic rot-flying locusts had an extremely strong reproductive ability. Through Lu Jie's forward-pushing breeding method. With the help of another insect-type carcinoma fei, the spoiled soil ruin insect. The number of parasitic rot-flying locusts could be counted by tens of millions. Gradually, this black-red wind was almost filled with parasitic rot-flying locusts. However, Luo was obviously not satisfied. It was as if these tens of millions of parasitic rot-flying locusts were not enough. In front of Luo's originally white fingers, there was a black nail that was nearly 10 centimeters long. This black nail was abnormally sharp. Luo's index finger pointed forward. This black wind instantly materialized into a wriggling stomach. Under the stomach, there was a meandering intestine that connected to the ground. This stomach formed by the black-red wind quickly wriggled. Millions of gold, platinum, and diamond parasitic rot-flying locusts were crushed by the stomach wall. The sound of explosions could be heard. Immediately after, Luo's face revealed a satisfied expression. However, it was obvious that this meal did not taste good. Luo could only fill her stomach, but she could not enjoy it to her heart's content. Yanling recovered from her shock and subconsciously said, "It would be great. It would be great if I could be like Kai Hua, a demon without a contract." Hearing Yanling's words, the corners of Yu Changjian's mouth subconsciously twitched. Yanling had always been like this. She spoke without thinking. Kai Hua was the last to join the group of three. In the beginning, Yu Changjian and Yanling's sacred source life forms were linked together. Kai Hua's appearance allowed the three sacred source life forms to link together to form a closed loop. Because Kai Hua was the last to join, he had not made any contributions and had not been granted the opportunity to form a demon. After all, the number of demons that the Devil Cathedral could produce was very small. Among the 400 or so favored by His Majesty, there were less than 10 in the younger generation who had the qualifications to form a contract with a demon. This was also why Han Qi had not offended Kai Hua. It was also why Kai Hua had always been targeting him. Because Kai Hua was jealous that Han Qi had a middle-rank demon while he did not. Yanling's words were like a knife cutting open Kai Hua's heart. She ruthlessly humiliated Kai Hua. In the past, perhaps Yu Changjian would have specially said a few words to help. But now Luo was eating. If they really quarreled and made a sound, it would make Luo's meal unhappy. Yu Changjian felt that Luo had previously said that she would eat them. Luo would use the abilities of the three of them for a period of time. He did not think it was impossible. Kai Hua clearly understood this point. Kai Hua's expression was angry as he looked at Yanling with a sinister look. He realized that Yanling was still patting her chest with lingering fear. Kai Hua could not remember Yanling's careless mistake in the past month. How many times had he understood it? Luo was eating, so even Qianyu could not interfere. Fortunately, after eating for 10 minutes, Luo seemed to have grown tired of eating the parasitic flying locusts. Luo's raised finger did not lower it. The hand that had grabbed the parasitic flying locusts from his stomach held a diamond-rank parasitic flying locusts and brought them in front of Luo. 7017K. Chapter 1740. Luo's middle finger, which had a long and slender black nail, suddenly pierced into the diamond-rank rotting flying locust's head. Then a strong ghostly aura appeared behind Luo. It was as if a creature was about to reveal its majestic appearance in the form of a monarch within the ghost chi. At this time, Chen Yu heard Luo speaking in the cryptic ghost language. Race judgment. Then, in an instant, the sound of the rot flying locust's wings could no longer be heard. Even the parasitic rotting flying locust queen stopped breathing at this moment. Lu Jie, who was 8 kilometers away, furrowed his brows. Lu Jie took a deep breath and said to Lin Yuan, Zhong Zhe, Lu Yifan and Gao Feng. The parasitic rot flying locust queen is dead. The larvae, adults and main body are all dead. Lu Jie could use the hurricane owlet moths produced by the insect queen to scout the environment. This was because the insect queen had an extremely high intelligence. Based on what the hurricane owlet moths could find, they could act as his eyes. However, even if the rotting locust queen was at Diamond/Legend, it would not be able to withstand the rotting locust queen. Its intelligence was no different from a silver fey, and there was no way to communicate with it. It could only be controlled through the insect queen. Moreover, the rotting flying locust queen could only control the larvae produced one way. There was no way to get feedback from these larvae that had grown into adults. Therefore, Lu Jie had no idea what was happening in the distance. At this moment, Lu Jie hurriedly ordered the hurricane owlet moths to expand outward and investigate. Fortunately, the death of the insect-type carcinoma phase did not affect the insect queen. When the insect queen controlled the insect-type carcinoma phase, it used a mental toxin and a certain amount of spiritual energy. Now that an insect-type carcinoma phase was dead, the insect queen could use more spiritual energy than before. Lu Jie summoned another insect-type carcinoma phase. The appearance of this insect-type carcinoma phase was very unique. Its reflective green carapace, brightly colored antennae, and flapping wings were even more gorgeous than butterflies. This insect species carcinoma phase was called the spirit-burning golden tortoise. The gas that the spirit-burning golden tortoise sprayed out from its abdomen could burn the surrounding spiritual energy and elemental energy. However, under the insect queen's control, the insect queen could now point at the spirit-burning golden tortoise. He only left behind the elemental energy he needed. Based on his previous understanding, it could be said that water, fire, and wind were the 3 types of elemental energy that drifted freely in the environment. The only thing he needed was fire. After burning the other elemental energies, the fire elemental energy would become relatively dense. Therefore, it was beneficial to Zhong Zhe's battle. Then let's bulldoze over. Let's let the Radiance Federation know that the Freedom Federation is the strongest of the 3 major federations. Chen Yu coughed lightly and said to Luo, we can bulldoze over, but the other party has already discovered our existence. It's just that the other party has already discovered our existence. There are a few white butterflies flying in the sky. Luo seemed to have seen through Chen Yu's thoughts. He raised his hand and looked at his black fingernails. My greater devil race judgment can only be used 3 times a year. I used it once before because that insect swarm was caused by an insect-type carcinoma phase. I don't need it. With just your phase you won't be able to kill the Cambrian petrified fish. This insect-type carcinoma phase is at least platinum. You still need to summon another phase for that to be possible. Rather than letting you exhaust your spirit chi, why don't I do it? I haven't even used one of the 3 race judgments this year. Chen Yu, we must win this duel. The 3 of them are not of one mind. They are too reliant on the 3 sacred source life forms' combined ability. In this world, what kind of ability can't be restrained? Chen Yu heard Luo's words and replied. Since you say so, then I'll conserve the spiritual power in my body on the way there. I'll leave everything to you. After saying that, Chen Yu looked at Yanling, Kaihua, and Yu Changjian. Even if Luo says to bulldoze over, the 3 of you must first summon your sacred source life forms. Apart from the sacred source life forms, don't hide your main phase. To be honest, if the 3 of you can't achieve the desired effect, why don't you let Luo eat them? I will fight alongside Luo, and the 3 of you won't have to worry about the rear. 7017K. Chapter 1741. Yanling, Kaihua, and Yu Changjian's sacred source life forms could link with each other. During the link, the 3 of them could provide a huge boost to the team. It didn't matter if it was a small team of 3 or 5 people, or a large team of 40 or 50 people. The effect of this linkage was very effective. In fact, the more people there were, the stronger the link effect of the three sacred source lifeforms would be. The three of them had originally thought that after the team battle, both sides would have at least 10 people participating. In the end, after Qian Yu lost the general beheading battle on the Freedom Federation's side, he had only chosen 5 people. As a result, Kai Hua Yanling and Yu Changjian's sacred source lifeforms link ability was greatly reduced. To the three of them, what they were most afraid of was being targeted by the other party during the linkage period. The other party only needed to kill any one of them, and there would be a gap in their cooperation. Even if the sacred source lifeforms activated their abilities, the three of them were confident that they could rely on the sacred source lifeforms' link ability to protect themselves. However, the three of them were the younger generation of the Freedom Federation, and they were 7 or 8 years younger than Qian Yu. Qian Yu was the team leader and the freedom envoy of the Freedom Federation's envoys. It was truly too chilling. He made it sound as if the three of them were the weakest in the team. What did he mean by fighting alongside Luo? What did he mean by the three of them being a worry? Yanling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian all felt that Luo might go crazy and eat them up. But how could the three of them just let themselves be captured? In the end, Qian Yu did not say anything to Luo. Instead, he played along with Luo's words. It was as if the three of them could only be used to their fullest potential if Luo ate them up. Kai Hua and Yu Changjian did not have time to say anything. Yanling, who had always respected Qian Yu the most, spoke up. Qian Yu, the three of us can summon our sacred source lifeforms. But during the battle, you and Luo have the responsibility to protect the three of us. Otherwise, the three of us will be targeted by the other party and something will happen to us. With just you and Luo, do you really think you can defeat the 5 of them? The devils on our side don't have much ability to grow. Just like Qian Yu, your devil didn't transform into a greater devil. However, compared to the devils produced by the Devil Cathedral, the Radiance Federation's Desolate Mystic Realms phase with the Desolate Bloodline have extremely strong growth potential. I don't know about others, but the current Radiance Envoy's Desolation Bloodline phase have always had the chance to reach the Great Desolate Realm. The Great Desolate Territory's Bloodline of Desolation is targeting the Great Devil. Yanling's sacred source lifeform was much nicer in appearance. A huge clamshell appeared under Yanling's feet. Once the clamshell appeared, the area within a radius of 50 meters immediately turned into a body of water. The shell opened, revealing a young girl with a fish's body and a human face. The girl's skin was an icy blue color. It was similar to the sirens from the Lantis mystic realm of the Azure Federation. However, it did not have the sharp ears of the sirens. It also did not have the gorgeous fishtails of the sirens. The female demon made some space for Yanling inside the clamshell so that she could sit inside. Then she took out a huge folding fan from the coral shelf behind her. The folding fan was covered with densely packed dark blue seaweed that looked like hair. Every time the female demon fanned the fan, several streams of water would fly out from the clamshell. They circled around the huge clamshell. Luo looked at Yanling, Kai Hua, and Yu Changjian, who had summoned their sacred source lifeforms. These 3 sacred source lifeforms all have the scent of Gorgon's bloodline. No wonder they can work together. The Freedom Federation had set foot in the swamp world more than a decade earlier than the Radiance Federation's exploration of the Abyss world. The exploration of dimensional worlds was not something that the Radiance Federation could compare to at the moment. In the beginning, the Freedom Federation's majesties had treated the swamp world as a huge treasure vault. They had explored the swamp world a lot and had basically emptied an area of resources in the swamp world. The factions in the swamp world were established according to each resource point. Therefore, the Freedom Federation had inevitably interacted with the apostles in the swamp world. The Freedom Federation's majesties had even met the ruler of the swamp world face to face. They had seen through the secret of the spirit transformation realm ruler. It turned out that dimensional lifeforms could choose when they reached the spirit transformation realm ruler level. 7017K. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.